Hello everyone. We hope you're doing well. We're doing great, and we truly appreciate your ongoing support. We'd like to briefly address some comments regarding our audiobook series. Rest assured, progress is ongoing. That said, your feedback is vital. If there's a novel you particularly enjoy and want to hear more of, please let us know in the comments. Each chapter requires a financial investment, so we can only continue series that receive strong audience interest. Although we retain core names and plot lines, we make significant editorial changes to enhance clarity, pacing, and immersion. These are not simple recitations. We work hard to deliver a polished, thoughtful listening experience. Without sufficient feedback or engagement, we may need to discontinue a series. So if you're enjoying something, don't stay silent. Your input truly matters. Note, our default audio speed is 3x. If that's too fast, let us know. We're happy to adjust it. Interested in early access to unreleased audiobooks? Visit our Patreon. You'll get to experience new content before it reaches YouTube. Just to clarify, I'm a fan like you. I've purchased these novels and adapted them with care, while respecting all rights and guidelines. For updates, follow us on Facebook and Twitter, X. YouTube update: recently, YouTube flagged some of our content for including mature themes, realistic violence, and darker story elements. As a result, we've decided to stop uploading anything that violates YouTube's guidelines. If you'd like access to the full, uncut versions including the more intense or mature content, you can find them on our Patreon page, where we upload everything first. Available now on Patreon: Shattered Innocence transmigrated into a novel as an extra. Transmigrating over 10,000 years late, I was forced to become a mighty presence. I, the celestial dragon, rule the heavens through the double gate, reigning supreme in countless worlds with peace taming, Tower of God sequence strength, cultivation when you take things to the extreme. Naruto is an Uchiha with cyst. WTF, the centuries-old ancestor in our family take concubine again. Plus 18, Ichi, reincarnated in Bleach as a wizard. Thanks for listening and happy listening. Chapter 1, Reborn as a space monster. Hey, you. Help me, will you? With a gasp, his eyes opened. His eyes were open, but no thoughts were formed inside his mind. It was all too confusing. He tried wiping his face, but found himself unable to. It was as if his arms and legs had been cut at the elbows and knees. Why did he have arms and legs, to begin with? Or even eyes? After all, didn't I die? Too confusing. I did. I died a long time ago. And my soul drifted in the darkness for so long. Then why? There was no way of finding the answer to that question for now. The next question that popped was, where? From confused to stunned, he had raised his gaze. There was only darkness, for the most part. A rainbow. That was his first thought upon seeing that. It only took 3 seconds for him to admit that it wasn't one. The earth below him was purple. The sky was different, or inexistent. Rings? Am I on Saturn or something? Suddenly, the light that illuminated the place grew brighter. Dancing vivid hues of blue and red pierced through the darkness. Bewildered and amazed. A nebula. His body suddenly shuddered as the oppressive sound of an explosion resonated. He could not see it. The explosion had happened too far away. Why could he hear it? His vision turned blurry for a second and, wait. He could finally see the rest of his body. What the fuck is up with that? Seeing his limbs, realizing their number, and how different they were. Am I some kind of space hermit crab? What the fuck? Not exactly. Initializing system. Loading. The system will aid you by answering your questions. The system will aid you by providing you with a status window. The system will aid you by giving you advice and guiding you. Guiding me? Aid me in what? You have been reincarnated. Yes, I can tell that much. But to be reincarnated as some kind of alien hermit crab. Your past life was on Earth, correct? Correct. You are currently 110 billion light years away from Earth. How much is that exactly? The distance is equivalent to X kilometers or Y miles. Well, shit. It doesn't really matter though. Why am I like this? Why am I alive in the first place? You have been reincarnated by the goddess of death. The goddess of death. Alright. I'll skip asking about how and why a goddess exists for now. So, why? Why was I reincarnated? The goddess of death needs your help. My help? And she thought bringing me back to life as a hermit crab would be a good idea? You are no mere hermit crab. You have been reincarnated as a prue. Okay? Anyway, I'm doing my own thing. That's fine with you, right? Of course, you might want to check your status window for more information about the Paru species. Their fangs are some of the toughest in the universe, and their digestive tract allows them to consume and digest anything. You should be able to figure out the rest. Well, Fine. I'll figure it out. The Pru turned away from the floating words. Walking around like this is tough. Coordinating his 12 smaller limbs as well as his 2 bigger ones was not easy at all, especially as he had only recently gained sensation in most of those limbs. It took a bit for the Pru to rotate a full 180 degrees, but once it did, holy shit. Dozens and dozens, no. Hundreds of paras filled the area. Hope I don't end up growing them. The Pru's 4 eyes studied the area as well as its inhabitants. This studying is what allowed this particular par to realize that paras have 4 eyes. The use of them had been so instinctive and natural that it hadn't been noticed. Unmoving. A couple of minutes passed. The paras were a peaceful, if not a boring bunch. They didn't fight or collide with one another. Well, they didn't really have a reason to fight. Each and every one of them was focused on their meal. On eating until they were satisfied. But it didn't seem like any of them would be satisfied anytime soon. Their circular mouths opened, and their fangs tore. The ground? They're eating the ground? The Pru raised its front limbs and knocked against the ground repeatedly. It's tough, really tough. It's not earth, but a mineral. Also, the Pru had noticed something. Something that would be incredibly important for the future. Our shells are the same color as that mineral. Gulp system. Can you check something with me? Of course, I feel like the shells and this mineral below are made of the same material. Is that a coincidence? It has to be, right? But they're eating that mineral, so please, check your status window. Chapter 2, Devour, Species, Pru Health Points, 30 out of 30 Endurance Points, 40 out of 40 Stats, Strength, 1 Agility, 1 Perception, 2 Vitality, 3 Endurance, 4 additional Stats, Attack, 1 Defense, 355 Skills, Devour, huh? I'm guessing the goddess went through the trouble of making this like a game so I can understand it easily. Correct, skill, Devour. I'm guessing that's the reason why nibbling on this mineral made the paras shells this way. Though it's not actually a skill, is it? There's no magic involved. Correct, the skills are only a way to communicate abilities brought upon by very specific and rare genetic combinations. Would speech be a skill? It would not be, except if you wanted it to be counted as such, so basically things that humans don't have, huh? Would echolocation count as a skill? Yes, I see. The Pru turned around, gazing at his numerous brethren. Cool. The Pru used its numerous limbs to step forward and, a quest has been issued. Quest, off the boulder, objective, step off the Curio meteorite and stand on the ground in the next 3 hours, reward, 3 stat points, penalty, none, Curio meteorite. Is that the meteorite's name, or is the mineral called Curio? The mineral is referred to as such. It is one of the toughest minerals in the universe, hence the 355 defense stat, huh? Cool. 3 stat points is huge. As long as they don't go to defense. Fine, I'll go along with your quest. The Pru turned away. Going through the crowd is probably not the best option. I'll go on the opposite. A side quest has been issued. Side quest, first meal, objective, devour a Pru, reward, enhance devouring skill, penalty, none. Want me to eat a brethren? Since you're telling me to do it, then they probably won't attack after I kill one of them, right? Enhanced devouring. Sounds good. I'll do it. The Pru awkwardly walked with its numerous limbs. The closest brethren was about 10 meters away. Or at least, it looked like 10 meters. Even once the distance was closed, there was no reaction from the closest brethren. It was solely focused on biting off pieces of the curio below and swallowing it. Should be easy enough, but let's check to make sure. They bumped shells. No reaction. Let's go for the kill then. No. Before that, the Pru moved around a bit, getting familiar with the way its own body moves. What feels like my neck can be extended, but not by a lot. I can also retract into the shell and disappear, though being then turned upside down would be the death of me. My finger limbs, the pincers, can move a bit more freely than the rest. These pincers and fangs are the only weapons I have. Seems more than enough. Alright, Ray. Let's get the first kill. Ray extended his left pincer towards the Pru's head. The latter didn't react. He waited for the Pru to extend its head forward in an attempt to eat the shattered pieces of curio below and, cut purple blood squirted out as the Pru's head was sliced off. Its body fell, twitching only for a moment. Cool. Ray looked around. There was no reaction by any of the surrounding paras. A peaceful bunch. Good for me. Shouldn't I eat all of them while I'm at it? There would be no merit in doing so, right? Eating the same thing over and over again won't lead to new changes. Plus my body is the same as theirs. The Pru's circular mouth filled with some of the sharpest fangs in the universe moved closer and, tastes just like lobster. Very nice. Could eat these just for fun. Ray thought to himself as he gobbled up the brew, body and shell. Congratulations, you have cleared the side quest first meal. You have obtained the skill Enhanced Devouring. What does that mean exactly? I won't need to eat as much of something to gain a skill or for my body to change? Correct, but there is more than that. Your ability to assimilate the devoured's genes is strengthened. The result from the devouring is now more under your control. Oh. That is indeed important. Wouldn't want to become a strong alien, only to gain a shrimp's arm after devouring one. Very cool. Now, since I got this side quest while walking away from the crowd, I suppose that means you want me to get off this meteorite by crossing through the crowd, right? The system did not answer. I'll take silence as a yes then. With the time limit on the quest, it might just be about directing towards the shortest route. Either way, let's do it. The crew walked forward, passing by hundreds of Paras. Despite their particular ability, they were all similar. Exactly the same. They're blessed with something amazing yet too dumb to do anything with it. I get why that goddess gave me this body now. Ray stared at the Paras mindlessly eating. Oh well. They look happy enough. He walked and walked. A slight feeling of annoyance started settling in. I hope there's a lot to eat on this planet. Or, at least, stuff to do. After passing the last of the Paras, it didn't take long before Ray started walking on a decline. Gotta be careful going downhill. All these limbs are kind of confusing to use properly at the same time. This is a good quest though. Gives me time to figure this out better. Indeed, by the time Ray stepped off the Curio meteorite, he had become quite proficient in walking with his new body. Alright, now what? His front limb touched the reddish ground and, congratulations, you have cleared the quest off the boulder. You have obtained the skill 3 stat points. You can assign the stat points to any stat of your choosing. Show me my status window again before Ray could finish his sentence. Are you that fucking stupid ? Do I have to explain to you everything ? That's. The crew's eyes widened. A woman's voice? Chapter 3, Invisibility. Once off the meteorite, the Paru found itself on a hill. Following the voices, it walked slowly until it could peek at what stood at the bottom of the steep hill. So that's the explosion I heard earlier? Holy shit. Ray couldn't believe his eyes. At the bottom of the 30-meter-high hill, a fucking spaceship? Are you kidding me? Now, get the fuck out. What? But this planet is, I said get the fuck out. Don't make me repeat myself. They're not human, are they? I mean, who knows how much time passed while I was dead. Still, it's due you. The Paru stepped back, as a staircase was extended from the spaceship. Do we really have to? This is insane. We know nothing about this planet. Are we going to die like this? The words, whispered, could barely reach the Paru. 3 of them exited the spaceship and stood on the staircase. Looks like they don't have the balls to go down. They were suddenly kicked down. Commander. What is? Shut the fuck up. Go figure it out. Now. She shouted. 3 had fallen down the staircase and onto the ground. They were men. Short and skinny men. With their knees on the ground, they shivered as they looked around. What the hell are we supposed to do? The 3 of you said the radars could detect the fuel we need to continue our mission on this planet. Start excavation and find it. But there's no fucking but. She shouted, her eyes burning. Her clenched fists collided with one another. Holy shit. Unlike them, she's tall and muscular. Not only that, but go find what we need, or the 3 of you are staying out there, left for dead. She's thick as fuck. Please, Commander. We can't survive on our own here. We need help. Ugh. What the fuck is up with these guys? How can they be this pathetic? Trash should know its place. You're all replaceable, so it makes sense to endanger you. The commander started walking to enter the spaceship. Blame yourselves for being weak and vulnerable. Blame yourselves for being useless males. Ha. Ray listened to the male's whispers and cries for a bit. So they're from a place where women dominate or something, huh? Sounds pretty hot. His eyes quickly moved away from them though. He stared at the commander's juicy glutes and thick thighs. I never knew red skin could look this good on a woman. That body is just. Holy shit. What I would do to this. The crew's body suddenly shivered, as a sound came from its left. Ray slowly turned in that direction while slowly retracting his body into his tough shell of curio. Something took a step. Something definitely moved. So how come? His gaze moved all over the place. How come I can't see anything? Another sound resonated. The crew's gaze immediately moved and, a footstep. Something is walking. Invisibility? Seriously? Holy fucking shit. Just what kind of creatures lurk in this universe? Another footstep appeared on the ground below. It was clear that something was there. But even then, its path. It's about to go downhill? Towards that spaceship? It might not be alone. But its path. It walked past me. It definitely saw me. I see. It doesn't care about me. Paras aren't threats to them. Or rather, Paras don't fight. This new species is used to walking next to Paras and treating them like inanimate objects. Great. Perfect? The red-skinned men's whimpers didn't stop. It seemed they had no idea what was approaching. They were already surrounded. Meanwhile, the Pru coolly walked forward while keeping most of its body hidden in its sturdy shell. Only its left pincer was left out. It walked until it stood in the way of the invisible creature. The latter stopped, seemingly confused. The Paru focused on its senses. 1 stat into perception. 1 into strength. 1 into attack. Your perception stat increases by 1 stat point. Your strength stat increases by 1 stat point. Your attack stat increases by 1 stat point. Instantly, the Pru could feel its body grow more powerful, as well as its senses grow sharper. Ray was standing in the creature's path, and that creature's confusion only lasted 3 seconds. It sidestepped the Paru standing in its way but, cut as soon as its foot touched the ground, the Pru's pincer was extended, and the creature's ankle was mutilated. A loud howl of pain resonated. Though only for a second, it was enough to immediately direct all the attention towards the top of the hill. Did you hear something? Yes. It definitely came from. There was definitely something. The Pru had attempted to cut the creature's leg off. But of course, without knowing what the creature's body looked like, this was a tough thing to do. Upon severing its ankle, the creature had fallen to the ground, and its invisibility had come undone. Fucking disgusting. Ray thought to himself as he continued pulling the creature's body so that those below couldn't see it. Like some kind of humanoid hairless rat. Or bat. Gross. Indeed, that is what they looked like. Should be good here. Right after severing its ankle, Ray had moved forward and aimed for the neck, ending the creature's life right away. Let's get a taste. You have devoured an Airo, huh? Didn't taste bad but. TSK. Devouring one isn't enough to gain invisibility, huh? Meanwhile, please, let us in. Monsters are coming for us. Please, we won't survive here alone. Don't leave us to die. We'll do anything, please. They shouted and screamed as the sounds of footsteps resonated from every direction. They ran and knocked against the spaceship's exterior, again and again, asking for help. Finally, get in, pussies. The commander muttered before spitting on the ground. The staircase fell, and they ran in, while she stepped out. Once again, Ray was amazed by the commander's body. Her skin and hair were both bright red. Her large breasts looked incredible under the military uniform that seemed ready to burst at any point. Her thin waist, wide hips, and thick thighs were almost enough to make him forget where he was. An invisible Airo stepped forward, and the commander quickly reached for her weapon. A gun. It only took an instant for the commander to swiftly raise her weapon, aim precisely, and shoot. A second later, an Airo appeared. It fell to the ground, a bullet through its head. 2 more shots. 2 more bodies appeared and fell. Whimpers followed. The rest ran away. Useless fucking males. The commander muttered before spitting once again. How can you be this useless, seriously? She turned around and the staircase was lifted. Ray couldn't hear the rest of what she had in mind. In any case, you have devoured an Airo, your agility stat increases by 1 stat point. You have devoured an Airo, your endurance stat increases by 1 stat point. You have devoured an Airo, you have developed the skill temporary invisibility. Chapter 4, Work a Civilization. Upon getting a closer look at the spaceship, Ray found that part of it had been damaged. I suppose they landed badly. Or crashed, I should say. Fuel, huh? I wonder if eating whatever they use as fuel will have an effect on me. The Pru circled around the large spaceship carefully. He activated the temporary invisibility skill he had just obtained multiple times. Species, Pru health points, 30 out of 30 endurance points, 5 out of 50 stats, strength, 2 agility, 2 perception, 3 vitality, 3 endurance, 5 additional stats, attack, 2 defense, 355 skills, devour enhanced devouring temporary invisibility. It uses very little endurance points. By using 45 out of 50 endurance points, I can remain invisible for about 5 minutes. Not bad at all. That probably has to do with my size, right? To those Airos, I arrived at the knees. Since I'm smaller, making me disappear is easier. Ray stared at the spaceship for a bit. They'll need to get fuel. And probably fix the damage incurred by the crash. They're not leaving anytime soon. Wonder if I should look for something to beat and devour. Before the Pru could decide on what to do, no, please. Don't make us go back. The same red-skinned men were taken out of the spaceship. This time, with devices of which Ray could not, for the life of him, figure out the use. Advanced high-tech is pretty cool. No idea how it works though. Women were with the men this time. The commander remained a good distance away. The other 3 women all had devices resembling headphones on their heads. One of them even had a strange set of thick glasses, the use of which was revealed rather quickly. Anything? The commander asked. None. Good. The commander clapped her hands. Get working, useless idiots. Damn. Even though she's a bitch, she really is super hot. System, got anything on them? They are part of the Hueco civilization. In the Hueco civilization, females hold the large majority of the power. Not only are they physically stronger than the males, but a female's social standing is usually higher than a male's. Males are seen as expendable and as a commodity. The Hueco civilization has, as you can see, conquered space, to a certain degree. I see. Males are seen as objects, huh? Still, it is weird. The Pru stared from far away. That commander seems to enjoy beating them around more than the other females. Anyways, FF found it. Overcome with excitement, he couldn't help but shout. It had only taken a couple of minutes of scanning too. Commander, I found the exact spot where we can then start extracting. What the fuck are you waiting for? Looks like I don't actually have much time. System, I assume this is. A quest has been issued, as I thought. Quest, off this planet, objective, leave the Miro planet in the next 14 hours, reward, 1 skill point, penalty, none. Staying stuck here would be penalty enough, huh? A skill point? Do you mean it's something that can be used to make a skill better? Correct, sounds awfully close to magic, don't you think? The goddess of death can, indeed, exhibit magical prowess. So the goddess gifts are special. I can't say no to this, can I? In the first place. The Pru's gaze moved towards the commander's body. I was planning on going anyways. The spaceship's commander knocked forcefully on the spaceship's exterior. Hurry the fuck up. She shouted menacingly. She turned to the side, for no real reason. What is it, Commander? Nothing. Come on. We don't have all day. Shit. That was close. The invisible Pru thought to himself as he stepped forward as slowly and quietly as he could. She could aim and kill those even though they were invisible. I suppose there's a bit of luck involved there, but still. The Pru had waited about 10 minutes before attempting to infiltrate the spaceship. There was no doubt in Ray's mind that the female worker with the strange glasses could see through the skill's invisibility. He assumed it detected heat. Good thing I waited for her to go circle around the spaceship. With her here, I wouldn't have been able to do this. Ren passed by the commander. He couldn't help but stop. Only for a second, to admire her side profile. From her breasts to her glutes. Simply magnificent. Simply. The invisible Pru shook its head. Alright. Only 3 steps left before I'm inside. Fuck yeah. The instant he got in, Ray realized just how large the spaceship truly was. Are there really only 7 people operating this whole thing? Damn, as if the goddess had heard his thought, his eyes found someone in the darkness. Seated on a chair, and asleep. A guy is sleeping? Huh. Is he special somehow? That one is the only mechanic riding on this spaceship. If anything goes badly when it comes to the spaceship, they have no choice but to rely on him. How do you know that? Are you omniscient or something? His title of mechanic is written on his blouse, though not in a language you are familiar with. Oh. That? Looks like scribbles. Anyway, need to find a safe place. I need to keep my endurance points high. Never know when I might need to go invisible. There were many doors to choose from. Ray settled on one just far enough that it was unlikely that pushing it would wake up the sleeping mechanic. Alright. The temporary invisibility skill was deactivated. Phew. Now I'm tired. The Pru stopped moving and, he slowly turned around, finding at his side an iron cage, in which a 2-headed dog was kept. It growled menacingly, but just before it could bark, bad dog. The Pru's pincers took hold of both its necks and, cut. They might figure out that something is here now. That's annoying. But something capable of smelling me would have been worse. Even if they know that something is here, I'll be able to make some moves. You have devoured an oath. Now, for this bad doggy's genes, I wonder if I can. Chapter 5, R.I.P., you have devoured an oath. Seconds later, the Pru's body started changing, although very slightly. There was only one real difference, and that was the neck. Its size had increased, and so had its mobility. Its thickness had also increased, as Ray was slightly worried about getting beheaded the same he had his brethren. Neck movement is more free now. That'll help. Longer neck too, more reach for these super sharp fangs. Good. There's nothing else in this room. If I can find other cages with weird creatures, that would be pretty cool. The Pru exited the room it had just entered, now motivated by greed. Ray activated the temporary invisibility skill only for a moment. just long enough to peek at the spaceship's exit. They were still out there, and hadn't noticed a thing. The moment turned a bit longer, as he stared at the way the commander's clothes stuck to her round and juicy glutes. Fuck. How am I getting horny as a fucking hermit crab? Ray shook his head and walked across to the next room. For about 10 minutes, he moved from one room to another. Nothing was found. Until that. What is it? A tsero crystal, incredibly valuable and radioactive material. Oh. Then either a skill that has to do with radioactivity or... First of all, can I eat that? Affirmative, cool. The Pru proceeded to devour both the tsero crystal as well as the special glass box it was in that helped block the radioactivity. Oof. Ray immediately felt his body temperature increase dramatically. Your endurance stat increases by 1 stat point. 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 Your endurance stat, fucking hell. I can still feel it, though not as much now. Felt like my guts had turned into a fireball. Anyways, show me my status window now. Species, Pru health points, 30 out of 30 endurance points, 1032 out of 1050 stats, strength, 2 agility, 3 perception, 3 vitality, 3 endurance, 105 additional stats, attack, 2 defense, 355 skills, devour enhanced devouring temporary invisibility. Holy shit. I was bummed out by the fact that I didn't get some kind of radioactive skill, but an increase of 100 stat points is more than enough. Not only that, but endurance. My endurance points went from 50 to more than 1000, this is insane. Ray couldn't help but chuckle internally. Well, I did just eat a radioactive crystal that must be able to produce a lot of energy, so I kind of get it. The Pru could almost start dancing. No more feeling tired after using the invisibility skill. As a matter of fact, scratch the temporary part, your skill temporary invisibility becomes invisibility, that's right. With 1000 endurance points, I can remain invisible for. I could do about 5 minutes with 50 endurance points, so. About an hour and 40 minutes? Not as impressive as I thought. Still, very good. Who knows how many other things I'll find here. Hopefully, something to raise my offensive power or agility. The Pru exited the room, but before it could enter another one, the sound of 4 shots being fired resonated. Fighting the invisible guys? I really hope they're careful. If one of those enters, they'll be on guard even inside this spaceship. That certainly would be troublesome. The invisible race started walking towards the exit. Feels so good. With 1000 endurance points, I probably won't get tired. Ever, maybe. Not only that, but if I get some kind of offensive skill, it'll use up endurance points too, making this the perfect way to start. Feels like it, at least. The invisible Pru did its best not to stare at the commander's bottom, which was tightly embraced by her clothes. Looks like. Oh. A guy died. The girl with the heat-detecting glasses too. Nice. The mechanic was woken up by a sudden shout and jumped to his feet. Guess they will close the place up temporarily. Let's leave for a bit. As the frail and frightened men entered the spaceship, Ray walked out. They're not taking those devices with them, so they won't be leaving anytime soon. The spaceship was closed down, and the Pru appeared out of nowhere. No reason to deactivate it. But wasting endurance points isn't useful either. Next time I go in there, I might need to keep the skill active for a while, so I'll need them to be at full by then. The Pru walked for a bit before stopping. How should I eat these glasses? I suppose I should call them a headset or something. Ray asked himself those questions, but he didn't think much about it. His fangs were more than enough to deal with it. Since this is an electrical device, I doubt it will. You have developed the skill Thermal Vision. Your perception stat increases by 1 stat point. Your perception stat increases by 1 stat point. Your perception stat increases by 1 stat point, a skill and 3 stat points. Not bad at all. Now. The Pru turned towards the 4 arrows. Your agility stat increases by 1 stat point. Your strength stat increases by 1 stat point. The first 2 gave a stat point each. The other 2, nothing. I guess devouring arrows from now on is useless. The Pru, then, turned towards the fallen worker who had bled out well. Ray walked forward. Rest in pieces, he thought to himself, before slicing their bodies and devouring them. You have developed the skill Heat Resistance, Chapter 6, Ventilation Ducts. You have developed the skill Heat Resistance, that's enhanced devouring for you, huh? Alright. Let's go check what they've been mining for. Hopefully something good. As the Pru peeked down the hole that had been made in the ground, he heard shouts, and the spaceship was opened again. They wanted to leave as fast as possible, which is why the mechanic moved towards the damaged part of the spaceship to check out how bad the damage was. With him, was the commander. Ray climbed out of the hole as the rest of the worker left the spaceship. He, of course, kept his invisibility skill active. I couldn't feel it increase my body heat, even though I drank quite a bit of it. Your endurance stat increases by 1 stat point. Aha. Talk too quickly. Still, I got a big gulp. It's basically 100 to 200 times less potent than that crystal, since the volume I drank was definitely more than the crystal's size. Anyways, this is good enough. Between the crew's pincers was one of the drill machines that had been brought out. They had like 6 or 7 of these, so shouldn't be an issue. As the worker started approaching, the crew hurriedly swallowed the drilling machine. The invisible Ray moved past the worker. 2 of his front limbs twitched. The crew raised those limbs slightly. That metal covers them just like I wanted. Looks sharp too. Ray entered the spaceship once again. An hour passed. Apart from the rooms I've already entered, all of them are locked. Breaking in would make my presence too obvious. I'll have to wait. KRSH. The crew walked over to the area where the sound originated from. Here. It leads to the ventilation ducts. I can barely fit in there. It wouldn't be a bad idea though. Alright. Let's go in. It was a bit of a struggle, especially because of the tough and large shell, but Ray managed to squeeze himself in there. Alright, thermal vision. Instantly, the darkness he had plunged himself into gave way to a colorful scenery. There was movement. These spiders are pretty huge. And these rats. What the hell is wrong with them? They have 2 noses that look like those of a mole. And they're moving. Despite his disgust, Ray forced himself to devour everything. You have developed the skill night vision. Your perception stat increases by 1 stat point. Your perception stat increases by 1 stat point. Nice. I can see pretty clearly now without using thermal vision. Though thermal vision is pretty fun. Night vision is just better. Though thermal vision did allow me to look at what was waiting at the corners of these ducts. I doubt it's good enough to see through walls. System. Skills can get stronger though, right? Correct, so devouring more of these might lead to better night vision? That is possible. I'll have to find ways to get better thermal vision then. Looking through walls is pretty powerful. The crew kept moving through the ventilation ducts. Can't seem to find another exit. Will I have to do a 180 go back? These ventilation ducts are below or on the ground. I have to find a way into the ducts on the ceiling. Those are probably the ones that lead to locked rooms. The crew stopped for a second. There are literal aliens everywhere, and I'm focused on finding stuff to eat. Ray chuckled, and continued moving. It didn't take long for the way to split into 2. I'll take the path that goes upwards. Climbing up the duct was especially easy thanks to his 2 metal-covered limbs. Gotta be careful not to pierce through it. I'm trying to look for stuff to eat, but I don't want them to notice that I'm here. Now that I think about it, I could eat this spaceship, couldn't I? Doing so would be stupid, but it's funny to think about. The crew walked through the maze-like structure, finding much of the same creatures which he swiftly killed and devoured. After a bit, arg. Fuck this. The shout came from below. Ray recognized that voice. That commander, huh? He wanted to click his tongue but didn't. Instead, he focused on his sense of hearing until he could faintly hear her footsteps, and did his best to go in that direction. Maybe this will lead to something good. Please go see your treasure room or something. The path split into 4. The crew couldn't see below, but it seemed like the path to the right was the one to take. Huh. The commander below let out a long sigh. That took a while. Scouting far enough for those weaklings to be able to do their job. The sound of automatic doors opening and closing. Things were deposited. Ray concluded that she was putting her weapon down. The crew stopped moving. This is. It was just good enough to see through ventilation ducts. Through walls wasn't feasible. But right now, he was standing in a ventilation duct. The one just below the ceiling for her room. Thermal vision instantly, the crew was even more glad to have obtained this skill than before. She raised her arms up, stretching them, and Ray could the outline of her body. The outline of her large breasts, of her tight and round glutes, as well as that of her thick thighs. This is her room, isn't it? The crew couldn't blink, let alone look away. Chapter 7, Peeking. This is weird. Ray thought to himself. I can see her. His thermal vision skill used much less endurance than invisibility, so there was absolutely no worry of endurance points running out. She's moving around. And stretching. She just took a seat. All I can see is shades of red, yellow, and orange. So why is this? Gulp. Just the outline of her body is enough to make me. The Paru felt its body twitch suddenly. She's taking off her boots. Is she going to take off her clothes? This is a loud buzzing sound resonated, which led to a long sigh and a curse from the red-haired commander. Seconds later, The automatic doors opened and closed. My body is reacting to it despite. Well, Paras don't have the brain power to think properly, yet I do. It's my soul that is. But fuck. How is looking at her in thermal vision getting me worked up? I could feel my heart beat faster, and my body heat increase. Did I seriously get horny watching her this way? Ray could barely believe it. But it was true. I want to look at her. But is it worth risking being found out? Ray activated his thermal vision again. Nothing was visible. Nothing emitted any heat. Except the round imprints of heat that her hot and erotic butt had left on the bed as she had taken a seat. Ray stared at those imprints that were growing fainter and fainter. He stared at the size of her buttocks, at the shape of the imprints left. The Paru felt its breathing grow heavier, and its heart rate increasing. I still want to. I want to see her. She's too hot for me not to. I just need to not be a dumbass about it. The Paru raised its right front limb covered by metal, and reached forward. It's dark in here, so there's no way that I'll be seen. I'll pierce this duct at just the right angle to be able to see her bed. The sharp tip of the Paru's limb went through the duct with ease. Ray could feel his breathing grow even heavier as he slowly pulled out his limb from the hole it had made. Fuck. The Paru was basically panting. I can see it. I can see her bed. Should I make it wider? No. There's no need to take additional risk. This is. The Paru felt a shiver go through its body. This is good enough. Ray could feel his anticipation rise and rise as he stared through that hole. It was only large enough for one of his eyes to see through. These shitty males are seriously good for nothing. TSK. I can hear her more clearly. Unbelievable. She muttered. Useless, the whole lot of them. Ray could hear her footsteps clearly. She was walking around the room. Every time it sounded like she was approaching the bed, the Paru's breathing would grow heavier. Come on. Just get in front of that bed so I can get a peek. She stood and cursed for a while, remaining steps away from the bed. All the Paru could see through the hole was the top of her head as well as her crimson hair. Come on. Come on. Filled with lust for the first in so long, after having spent so much time dead, Ray found himself unable to resist. No, that's not quite right. Ray refused to resist it. He wanted it. Holy fuck, she's hot. She's so freaking hot. The Paru thought to itself as she took a seat on her bed. Those breasts are. The next second, her arms moved back, and Ray's thoughts were interrupted. She opened up her vest, and lazily let it fall at her feet, revealing an incredibly tight and dark skin suit, which hugged her thin waist and muscular body, but struggled to contain the sheer size of her massive and jiggly breasts. The red-haired otherworldly beauty bent her back, reaching for her boots, and slowly let them fall to the ground. Useless. All of them. The beauty muttered as hung back and pulled down on her tight pants. The pants were so tight around her round butt and thick thighs that she needed to move her hips, raising one side while lowering the other alternatively, to lower those pants. Eventually, they, too, hit the ground. Her hands were on her knees as she arched her back and rounded her shoulders, stretching her body. Her slender arms pushed against her magnificent breasts, nearly enough for one of her nipples to escape the skin suit's hug. The commander of the spaceship pushed herself back, and lay on the bed, leaving herself completely inside the Paru's field of vision. She was the hottest woman he had ever seen. Chapter 8, What I Would Give the Paru was panting as it watched over the scene. Ray did his best not to move, so as not to miss an instant. She was so beautiful. Who knows when he will or if he will get another chance to peek at such a beauty. What if the spaceship doesn't function properly? What if the next planet is filled with disgusting and gross creatures like the Airos? Now is the time to enjoy the view. Those. Fucking useless. Just when Ray thought the scene wouldn't and couldn't get any better, her hands started moving. Fucking useless. Weaklings. The commander of the spaceship cursed as she caressed her arms. There's no way. Is she? When? Just when will I get to fuck? She muttered before turning to side, burying her face into her pillow, and revealing her round and erotic butt that had just the right ratio of muscle to fat. Is she going to? I'm tired. I'm so tired of being a freaking virgin. Her right thumb moved to her mouth. What the hell? What the hell? Ray was absolutely stunned. I want to fuck. But I can't use those useless weaklings. If I use them. Her right hand moved over from her arm to her chest. She caressed her breast, drawing circles on it. Circles that grew smaller and smaller. Smaller and smaller on their way to. I'll lose my status of commander. I won't be able to have a unit under me. They'll say that I'm. She let out a soft moan as she arrived at the center. They'll say that I'm taking advantage of them. Of my superior status. That I only took males in my unit to use them. They'll say. The beauty bit on her thumb, suppressing another moan. They'll say that I'm a horny animal who can't control myself. I can't be like that. I can't show them this. Otherwise, I'll definitely. She shut her eyes and arched her back as her fingers gently and softly flicked her nipples through the skin suit covering her body. But I want to. Why aren't they as horny as I am? Why are these males so fucking complicated? We've been on this mission for 17 months now. The fact that a virgin like me is stuck with those vulnerable. They'll say that I used them. That I held them by the wrist and brought them to my room. That I threw them onto my bed. The beauty arched her back further as her ankles sank into the bed. Her left hand moved towards her breasts, while her right hand moved up to her face. I want to. I need to. She muttered while her fingers played with her lips, as her tongue licked every inch of those fingers. Using them. Like toys. The licked fingers, covered in saliva, glittered under the light. I want to use them like toys. I want. She moaned as saliva-covered fingers moved to her crotch, remaining above her skin suit. MMMH. Another moan was suppressed as she realized that the saliva wasn't necessary. Her crotch was more than wet enough. I want to. I'd put them on the bed, grab them by the wrists and... No. What I want. What I really want. Her fingers moved, drawing circles around the sensitive spot between her legs. These males are too weak. Too small. I want to use. I want. She gulped and let out a moan. I want. To be used by. I want. Her eyes shot open as her hips and crotch were raised. Her amazing ass was off the bed. She suppressed her moan as much as she could, holding even a hand to her mouth. Her butt regained the bed. Her legs stuck together as she bit on her thumb and shivered. She was breathing heavily, still feeling waves of pleasure move up and down her body. I want. To be fucked. I don't want. To be a virgin. Anymore. It took her a while to get her breathing under control and for her shivering to stop. She passed her hand over her crotch, shivered as she was still sensitive, and, I'll have to change into something else. Her red eyes stared at the sticky juices she had just stained her skin suit with. She bit on her lower lip, deciding against changing. Still, this is irritating. She pushed herself up and sat with her legs to the side. Her luscious hair descended over her body, veiling her breasts. I'm still too much of a quick shot. Minutes passed, and the beauty reached for her cupboard. She pressed on one of the numerous buttons, and the light was turned off. The Pru remained in darkness, using neither thermal vision nor night vision. Man. The look in its eyes had completely changed. What I would give to fuck her. Ray stared into the darkness. System. He called out telepathically. Chapter 9, Let me in. System. Do something about this. Can you make my body more human or something? Or like theirs? She's freaking asking for it. Please. Please let me take her. The Pru quickly shook its head. Fuck no. I can't start thinking with my dick now. This species of aliens. Paras can change their bodies depending on what they eat. They're basically an evolving monster. Their unique ability lets them bypass millions and millions of years of evolution. I can't throw this away just to get some. I can't do that. Night vision I can't. The Pru repeated to himself internally, as if in a trance, staring through the hole at the beautiful Hueco twisting and turning in her bed, convinced that she was alone and safe. I ate 2 of those. Both of the Hueco who died. Isn't that enough to get something? Analyzing, calculating, please calculate well. The goddess of death accepts, yes. The next second, the Pru's body started twitching and... Wait. Why isn't my whole body twitching? Without counting its pincers, the Pru had 12 limbs. The 2 below the pincers were covered by metal and their end was sharp. Only the 2 limbs below those were twitching. They slowly changed and turned into... fucking tentacles? What the fuck am I supposed to do with that? The increased sensitivity, the fuck? Ray was enraged. He didn't even read the rest of the message. I didn't even eat anything with tentacles. The Pru clicked its tongue before turning around. Its movements and thoughts had both ceased immediately. What? As soon as the Pru had turned around and laid its front limbs on the ground to move, it felt its 2 new limbs hurt. No, it wasn't pain. More like... the tentacle-like limbs reached for the ground. A second of contact was enough to make sure. It's freezing. Huh. Because of the exoskeleton, I don't have much sensation in my limbs or body. I can now tell that these ducks are pretty cold. The Pru remained unmoving for a bit. Increased sensitivity. Ray turned towards the hole he had made through the ventilation duct. How cruel. He smiled internally with a chuckle. 3 minutes later, a dozen holes had been made through the ventilation duct, each at a different place and angle. The Pru was trying to get a good look at the room. The ventilation duct goes along the walls of the room? Then. It didn't take long for the Pru's eyes to widen. There's an opening. The Pru continued staring at that opening. Pulling out the rectangular fence is all it would take to open up the ventilation duct and enter the room. Holy shit. The Pru could feel its body heat increase as it stared at the opening that was on the other side of the room. The duct moved to the corner of the room, descends from the ceiling to the ground while following the corner, then goes along the ground, before shifting to the left. The opening in the duct is only 5 steps away from the bed. 5 steps away from. Ray thought for a bit while moving around the ventilation duct, peeking inside the room through various holes. Gulp. The Pru started moving towards the corner of the room. Right here, the tunnel is completely vertical. I'll have to go down slowly. These tentacles don't stick to stuff, so I'll have to pierce through the metal and go down slowly. Otherwise, the noise will. The Pru scratched its head with its left tentacle-like limb. This actually felt pleasant. Not only did the tentacle-like limb have more sensation than the rest of the limbs, but it was also much more mobile than them, able to reach above and behind the Pru's head. The Pru peeked down with night vision and heat vision, before nodding to itself. Alright. Nothing standing in the way except some spider webs. Let's start descending. Ray started going down, piercing the metal just deep enough that the duct wasn't pierced through. Slowly but surely. The Pru's body froze before it could reach the end of the descent. Arg. Ray immediately used his heat vision to see through the duct. The beauty shivered, before reaching towards the same cupboard she had reached towards to turn off the lights. Click. A silent minute passed. Oh. The temperature within the ducts had started rising. How nice. Heated rooms. With a spaceship able to travel from planet to planet, that shouldn't surprise me suddenly. Sounds started resonating from within the ventilation duct. The Pru quickly finished its descent and waited, using both heat vision and night vision. That's. Rat-like creatures and insect-like aliens swarmed the ventilation duct. This room is usually kept warmer than the rest, huh? Since she's commander of the ship. The commander let out a soft moan as she stretched. The temperature was just right for a good night's sleep. The temperature was just right within the ducts for the creatures standing in the Pru's way too. Guess I'll kill and eat a bit before going in. The Pru wasn't really sure what it would do upon entering the room through the opening, so the additional time spent here wasn't much of an issue. Chapter 10. Inside the room, you have developed the skill Venomous Fangs, you have developed the skill Infectious Cut, you have developed the skill Spiderweb Production. Please determine the exit point of the spiderwebs. Fucking hell, that was a lot of vermin to deal with. The Pru let out a sigh before turning his gaze towards where he perceived the bed to be. Heat vision still asleep, good. A freaking war took place, but that has nothing to do with those outside these ducts. Ray thought with an internal chuckle. Alright, let's see about these skills. The Pru decided for the exit point of the spiderwebs to be its mouth, as having it at the back like spiders do would be uncomfortable, he assumed. Making it the mouth wasn't feasible, so the system made it just below the mouth. It was also connected to the throat. Among other things, this made it feel as close as it could to spitting. Now that those are dealt with, Ray's gaze was stuck on the beauty whose body could only be seen through heat vision. Gulp. The Pru walked down the duct until he arrived at the opening. Now, Ray only needed to insert his sharp limbs into small holes that made up the fence, and pull it into the duct. After that, the way would be open. He would be inside the room. Just one step. One step left. The Pru's sharp limbs started moving towards the fence, but they stopped before going through its holes. Instead, the Pru turned away. Let's close this up. If those rats, spiders, and insects end up coming into the room afterward, that'll cause trouble. Using his newly acquired spiderweb production skill, Ray sealed the ventilation duct from the right and left of the opening he was in front of. This should be thick enough not to let them in. At least, I'll realize they're here thanks to these webs. Spitting for 10 minutes straight was annoying, but it wasn't tiring. A high endurance stat really is the best. Ray's anticipation had partly turned into slight anxiety. Gulp. Let's go for it. The Pru's legs managed to pull out the rectangular fence rather easily. It placed the fence on the inside of the duct. Let's put some webs in here. They're sticky, so. Spider webs were placed on the edges of the opening, so that putting the fence back could be done with ease. Even doing so hurriedly would be enough, as it would stick to the spider webs instead of falling off. With another gulp, Ray walked to the opening. Invisibility. Even though it was dark within the room and the beauty was asleep, he felt this was necessary. If not to keep his presence from being noticed, then, at least, to make him feel more at ease. What am I even going in here for? He could feel his breath go heavier. The air within the room was warm. The ventilation ducts he had been through weren't the spaceship's means of regulating temperature. This is too fucking strange. I can't go into a woman's. But she's an alien, so who cares? And I'm an alien too, so. Yeah, no. That doesn't change anything. But the Pru's front limbs passed through the opening. Can't stop myself from going in. Night vision Ray concentrated on his hearing right away. He wanted to make sure that his steps and numerous limbs weren't making any noise as they came into contact with the ground. But instead of those, all that his sense of hearing could focus on was the sound of her breathing. She turned away, facing the wall. The Pru's whole body was through the wall. To Ray's left, a large cupboard. Beyond that cupboard, the bed. Her bed. The Pru turned towards her, and it feared that its breathing would wake her up. The Pru reluctantly turned away, trying to calm its nerves. A second later, it started walking towards the desk on the other side of the room while remaining far away from the door, fearing that it would open automatically. Ray had moved towards the desk after noticing the clothes she had discarded earlier. He made the coat on that desk move with his tentacle-like limb. Roka, so the commander has a name. The Pru could feel its tentacle limbs shiver each time they made her coat move. A sudden long yawn. It made the Pru's body freeze. Ray turned around. She was looking straight at him. With her right cheek against the pillow, her left eye was locked on him. Fuck. Chapter 11, Sleeping Beauty Fuck. That was nerve-wracking. The Pru thought to himself as he remained stuck to the wall. Upon being noticed, Ray had frozen in place. The red-haired beauty stared right at him for a full second, rubbed her tired eye, and turned away to continue sleeping. She had her eye open but in this darkness, she couldn't see. I guess that makes sense, since she turns the lights on and off. Ray could almost chuckle. In the first place, I was using invisibility, and these guys couldn't see through the arrows so. The Pru took a deep breath in, and it felt a shiver go down its body. Safe. Safe he was, but also nervous. The Pru started walking towards the wall opposite the opening he had come in from. I'll stay close to the wall just in case. Let's approach slowly. While remaining with his body stuck to the wall, Ray walked until he arrived at the wall opposite the door. The wall to which the side of her bed was stuck. The Pru started walking towards the bed, and it didn't take long for her feet to become visible. The worker's skin was bright red. But when night vision is in use, colors like that disappear. All that remained was the image of her soft and delicate feet rubbing against each other softly. The Pru couldn't help but stare at her bare and small feet for a bit. Ray was never into that kind of thing. But in this situation, with this body of his, with such a beauty in front of him, asleep and defenseless, with the fear of being caught fighting against the urge to get closer, every square inch of her body was erotic and lust-inducing. The Pru continued walking slowly, very slowly, until its body stood right at the edge of the bed. As if its body had a mind of its own, the tentacle-like limb moved, and caressed the sole of her foot. Ray had already noticed that the tentacle-like limbs were very soft and squishy, unlike the rest of his body covered by either exoskeleton or shell. The tip of his limb had come into contact with her skin for only a moment. That was enough for the Pru to feel like its body was about to start burning up. The feeling of its sensitive limb brushing her soft skin. Holy shit. Was heavenly. The dazed Pru, in awe, scanned her body with his gaze. Her delicate feet, her thin ankles, her thick thighs, her round bottom, the side of her breast which was visible despite her sleeping on her side. The sleeping beauty that was soundly resting after a tough and stressful day. I want to touch her. Would have her night turned upside down. Minutes had passed. The Pru had, using its tentacle limb, brushed against and caressed every part of her body. Each time, Ray took his time before moving up her body. The soles of her feet, her ankles, her calves, and the side of her thighs. The Pru had skipped her round butt, preferring to leave such a body part for later. With each stroke, the sleeping beauty let out a soft and nearly inaudible moan. Each time the Pru touched her, she pushed against his touch, as if asking for more. Ray wasn't thinking by this point. He was too focused, too lost in his lust. There was nothing to think about. The most beautiful woman was in front of him. The hottest and most beautiful. What else is there to think about but her? Why should he focus on anything else but her beauty, body, and curves? The Pru approached her lower back, before deciding against it, almost instinctively. Instead, the Pru took a couple of side steps. The tentacle-like limb. Caressed the side of her neck. Repeatedly and softly, Ray stroked the side of her neck, with one smooth motion of his hand until it reached her nape. The sleeping beauty slowly reached, and the Pru almost felt like letting her take hold of him. Her hand wandered aimlessly, before caressing her own neck. By this time, the Pru wasn't the only one breathing heavily. Ray thought about caressing the back of her hand, but before he could make a move, the sleeping beauty turned her body to lay on her back, revealing her incredible breasts that could pop out at any moment under the tight skin suit, as well as her flushed face. With her eyes closed and her breathing heavy, she was blushing while smiling faintly. The Pru caressed the side of her thigh in a descending fashion, and her hand slowly moved as if to follow the Pru's touch. When Rei's hand arrived at her knee, it went across, towards the inside, and started ascending. Ascending while on the inside. His hand caressed her inner thigh for a while. Her eyes were still closed. She was panting. Drops of sweat had formed on her neck, on her bare thighs, and on the sides of her breasts which were exposed. The Pru was breathing just as heavily as she was. He caressed her inner thigh one last time, and her hand slowly hovered in the air, before landing on her crotch. The Sleeping Beauty was turned on, and so was the Pru. Chapter 12, Sleeping Beauty, 2 Yes. Roka whispered and moaned in her sleep. Rei had learned of the spaceship commander's name by reading it on her coat. All I can do is touch her. This is so. Using his night vision skill, the Pru could see her body and all of her beauty. Frustrating. Indeed, all he could do was touch. What made it worse was that there was no way for him to make the fire burning inside him die down. With no release to be had, he wouldn't be satisfied, no matter how much and for how long he touched her. The Pru knew that. Still, it didn't stop. The Pru's tentacle-like limb caressed her arm in a descending fashion, until arriving at the back of her hand. That hand had been placed over her crotch, which seemed to be burning up. She really isn't used to being touched, huh? I guess that's understandable seeing how those guys were absolute pussies. How can they be near a beauty like this and not try? No, not even try. How could they not feel anything? Rei found this absolutely nonsensical. Starting from her pinky, the Pru caressed each of her fingers, before pushing against that hand. Yes. The hand being pushed had, in turn, pushed against her crotch. The Pru caressed her by moving his tentacle-like limb down from her wrist to the edge of her middle finger repeatedly, applying ascending levels of pressure the closer he got to the edge of her middle finger. How dare you? An inferior male. Acting so lewd and... She bit on her lower lip. I've been waiting. Waiting for a male too. Rei felt the fire within him burn hotter and hotter, as he noticed her previous soft nipples get pointier and pointier the more he touched her. Oh yeah. Her hand which had been lying flat against her crotch curled and, a moment later, she... The Pru's body froze as she moved suddenly. Yes. The sleeping Roka brought a hand to her mouth, before placing both her arms on the bed and beyond her head. This made her lower back arch. She pushed her breasts forward. Rei almost wanted to tear the skin suit hiding her soft skin and hardened nipples to plunge his head and mouth and feast on her breasts with both mouth and tongue. But he didn't. Something like that would be too obvious. It would wake her up right away, and Rei couldn't risk that. Not with the body he currently had. Still, he fantasized about it. She was, over her head, holding her left wrist with her right hand, and her right wrist with her left hand. Rei fantasized about being the one holding both of those wrists with one hand, while tearing away her skin suit with the other. He fantasized about... The Sleeping Beauty moaned, as she held her arms tightly above her head, and spread her legs. The crotch that had been sunk was pushed forward, as the soles of her feet came together. Being presented with her crotch this way, Rei couldn't refuse her. Not that the thought of even doing so had come to his mind. He found himself almost lost in thought, though he was not thinking, while staring at what had been presented to him. The black skin suit that hid her body did a bad job of it, as a large portion of the side of her breasts was visible. Not only that, but the skin suit was, as one might expect, incredibly thin. The Pru's tentacle-like limbs moved up her thigh, making her shiver. From her hips, to her timid sides, where making her moan and gasp was easiest. The soft and squishy extremities of his limbs moved to her midsection before splitting. One moved upwards towards her large and imposing breasts, while the other moved downwards towards her crotch. The left limb circled around her breast, before swirling around it. The Pru could feel its tentacle-like limb melt into her breast, as one was just as soft and squishy as the other. It stroked, softly pushed against, and gently fondled the breast. Each time, with a bit more pressure, and the sleeping Roka could feel the difference. Yes. The end of the Pru's limb moved across her breast, passing over her nipple, which caused her to gasp, before moving back towards the side of her boob. Slowly, Rei lay his hand on the side of the ribcage, before moving upwards, always taking his time, towards the side of her boob, which was exposed by the erotic skin suit Roka was wearing. Another gasp came about, but Rei didn't spend much time there. Instead, he continued moving upwards, passing the end of his hand up her armpit, causing her entire body to shudder and lock into place. He moved up to the elbow, before moving back down. The Pru circled and fondled the side of her breast, before finally pushing against the skin suit's tight embrace, and passing below it. Rei's hand moved below the skin suit, fondling and stroking her underboob in an upwards fashion, feigning to go towards the nipple she wanted to be touched. TSS. Yes. Keep. Please. Ray could almost feel his body melting, as he turned towards his other hand. The Pru's right tentacle-like limb had remained above her crotch, teasing and caressing her groin. Every time he would touch her differently or with more intensity, she would push her pelvis upwards, exposing it, offering it. Her drenched crotch was repeatedly raised forward in short spasms and sudden twitch-like movements. She was offering it, so it was only right for the Pru to take it. Chapter 13, Sleeping Beauty. 3 Ray marveled at the body of the woman that lay in front of him. On the soft bed, she lay on her back, the sides of her breasts exposed, her legs spread apart, and the soles of her feet together. The twitches and shivers going through her body made her raise her pelvis time and time again. She raised it, and lowered it. Raised it, and lowered it. The dance of her hips entranced the Pru, who was eager to join the lonely beauty in her unaccompanied dance, to be her partner. Gulp. A critical moment. A touch would give rise to a reaction stronger than any of those previously brought forth. Her most sensitive spot. The spot he wanted to touch most. The spot he feared touching most. The spot she. He moved closer to the end of the bed. From there, he could view it entirely. The thin bodysuit that enveloped her body was drenched to such an extent that the Pru could see her everything. Its outlines, curves, and lips, as well as the sensitive twitching spot. Night vision was such a beautiful thing to have. The sleeping Roka moaned, as she reached with her hand. Ray had, to get a better look, moved away and, therefore, taken his hand off her breast. Something that she didn't seem to appreciate. Something she missed already. Answering her greed with greed of his own, the Pru moved back to where it stood earlier, and its tentacle played once more with her erect nipple. Yes. Keep. Yes. She bit on her lip as the Pru's free tentacle-like limb moved down her stomach towards her crotch. Roka spread her legs apart further, pushed her pelvis up further, arched her back, blushed like never before, and... It only took a moment. The instant that the tip of his limb came into contact with her sensitive spot, her whole body suddenly moved. Yeza. Roka moaned as she, in one motion, curled her back, turned onto her side, and clamped her legs with such speed that the Pru felt as if its hand had been in a crocodile's jaws. Holy fuck. Her thick thighs closed on his tentacle-like limb and squeezed. The grip she had was powerful. It didn't take long for her legs to start performing slow movements, as if massaging that tentacle-like limb. Did she not want to be touched there? Or did she not want it to leave? Thanks to the sensitivity of his limb, Ray could tell that there were 3 different areas of contact. Her inner thighs, as well as her. She's rubbing it against my. Ow. Yes. Her moans grew louder and more frequent, as she rubbed against his limb with ever-increasing passion. Ever-increasing eagerness and intensity. Ray suddenly shivered, as a breath of hot and moist hair was exhaled onto his face. His gaze immediately moved away from her crotch and thighs. The sleeping beauty's face was inches away from him. Blushing, and panting. The small contractions on her face made her pleasure obvious. Her eyebrows twitched, furrowed, through her slightly parted lips, breaths of moist and hot air accompanied her every moan. Yes. 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 Ray found himself in a trance that he could not break out of. A beauty like her was pleasuring herself in front of him. All thoughts immediately ceased. All he could do was stare, as she got closer. And closer. Yes. Yes. And closer. Yes, please. I want to. I want you to. The Pru, who had lost himself in lust, both hers and his own, had been breathing just as heavily as her this whole time. Perhaps because of the sticky fluids that had started enveloping his hand, or because of the moist breaths she sent his way each time, Ray hadn't noticed that, just like from her mouth, drool had started going down his face. He only realized this once it had started its descent to the ground. The Pru immediately pulled its limbs away from her body. The sleeping beauty, unable to accept being left so suddenly, moved her hand towards her crotch. But before it could reach, splat, the Pru's body froze, as her eyes opened wide. Chapter 14, Hiroka's eyes opened. There was only pure darkness around her. She was breathing heavily. Her whole body was burning up. She could feel her hand against her own crotch. What? Roka whispered to herself. Her eyes suddenly widened, and a scary thought entered her mind. She immediately jumped off the bed. What if something has entered the room? Roka leaped across the room, doing her best to ignore the way her body felt. Remembering the creatures she had seen outside, she ignored the buttons on her cupboard, and leaped to the other side of the room, before taking hold of her gun. If there was one of those invisible creatures in here, then the light wouldn't help at all, is what she thought. Roka stood for dozens of seconds with her butt pressed against the edge of the desk and her index finger on the trigger of her gun, ready to shoot at the first sound produced. She had previously noticed that even when invisible, Those creatures made sounds when moving around. Roka stood in complete darkness and waited. Her knees were pushing against each other, but that couldn't be helped. Her crotch was burning up. 2 minutes passed. Only then did she slowly and cautiously walk towards the cupboard by the side of her bed, and turn the lights on. Was it just a dream? I really felt like... She looked around, scratching her head. Roka wandered through the room, waving her hands and arms, searching. There was nothing to be found. I guess it was just she froze, as her foot stepped over a liquid by the side of her bed, on the ground. Fuck. An embarrassed expression took over her face. Was I really that messy before going to sleep? The embarrassment only grew more intense as she lowered her body and wiped it off the ground. Or was it? While I was asleep? Added to the fact that she had woken up so suddenly, the thought filled her with dread. Having a dream like that. Roka lowered her gaze towards her drenched crotch. Strings of stick fluids hung in the air like webs, connected to the crotch and inner thigh. Being put in this state from a dream. Just how horny will I get if this mission gets any longer? She passed her thumb over the sticky liquid that covered her fingers. What if someone had seen me? What if I had been shouting in my sleep? What if? Before she realized it, her hand moved under her skin suit, and towards her crotch. To be seen like that by one of the males. No, there's no way they would be desperate enough to look at someone like me. They would lose all respect for me. They would see me as beneath them. They would. Roka fantasized, eventually falling to the urges of her body. The Pru watched from within the vents, through the same holes he had made earlier. He had escaped out of the room right away, and placed the rectangular fence back, before slowly moving back to the spot where it had all begun. Ray watched as she pleasured herself, fantasizing about being touched and dominated. He continued watching until she reached the edge, before walking away through the vents. His resolve to get a proper body was stronger than ever. His lust, desire to get stronger, and urge to survive all aligned. This life that the goddess of death gave me. Ray thought to himself as he walked out of the spaceship minutes later, his invisibility skill in use. It's turning out pretty damn good. Unlike Roka, there had been no release of the heat burning within him. He would hold on to that heat, until he was capable of dealing with it properly. Until he was capable of dealing. Oh, God. Roka whispered with a slight smile on her face. She lay on her bed. Her eyes were half open. That was better than ever. But I want more. I want to lose my. With both his and her heat. How much time do I have left on the quest? Off this planet objective, leave the Miro planet in the next 14 hours. Reward, 1 skill point. Penalty, none. Time remaining, 9 hours and 32 minutes, it'll probably take a while to leave. The guys are working like slaves, huh? 9 hours and 32 minutes should be the time it takes them to get enough fuel to leave this planet. Listening in on their conversation, they're a lot more scared than the commander. Even the women watching over them are pretty scared. They rotate who gets to sleep, huh? Good thing Roka is the one I have my eyes on. The women here aren't as thick, and they're obviously too scared. Ray nodded to himself. I'm not about to live a life filled with fear when I've been turned into this, multiple light years away from Earth. The more he thought about it, the faster he could feel his heart beat. I can't wait to see more strange creatures. Hopefully, I'll be able to. There's already invisibility. How many crazy abilities will I be able to acquire while traveling through space? Can't forget the women too. Damn. Can't lie, the goddess of death did a pretty good job. Just need some luck in finding the right creatures to devour. The Pru started walking away from the spaceship, opposite the Curio meteorite he had started on. I'd like to be back here an hour before the end of the timer. Let's just count it an hour and a half. That leaves me 4 hours of wandering, and 4 hours on the way back. Since it's about 10 hours, I suppose that's how long she will sleep? The Pru started moving faster and faster, eager to find more peculiar creatures on this planet. They'll take off a bit after she wakes up, so I'll make sure to be there before then. Ray wandered off, looking for an adversary meal. Chapter 15, Hunting or Nidons. Huh. The Pru looked down the large crater he had found, invisibility in use. If this was more like a video game, I'd get experience points for them. Down below lay the Airo's main territory. Inside the crater, dozens and dozens of them were either walking, standing around, sleeping, or eating. Funnily enough, they're eating Paris. I guess that explains why that one wasn't scared of me at all. They're familiar with Paris and how they operate. But that's exactly why an ambush could work. Ray debated whether it would work or not, and it would. My stats have increased. Plus, the only skill I gained was invisibility. In other words, they don't have the ability to detect invisible Airos themselves. They must communicate using sound or something. Correct, once invisibility is in use, even Airos lose sight of one another, They communicate using clicks of their tongue and other noises they are able to produce. I see. But it's worthless, since devouring them won't. Wait, what's that? Among the different Airos eating body parts of unmoving and cut-up Paris, a couple were eating something different. Its head was similar to that of a rhinoceros, its back was covered by a tough-looking carapace similar to a turtle's, and, at the end of its legs, were what looked like sharp claws. Can't see well from this far. A dead ornidon, anything else? Their carapace is tough, though not as tough as that of a pru. Their claws are very sharp, but they lack the mobility to use them properly. Having a carapace or shell does have disadvantages. Through the pores around their body, they are able to expel a highly combustible spray all around them. The spray is expelled in such a quantity that a mist is formed around the ornidon. It is often hot enough to burn the enemies who dare get too close. Fuck yeah. Now that sounds useful. Any idea where I can find them? I suppose I can steal the leftovers, but there really isn't enough. Ornidons are rather large in size, yes, I can tell from what they're eating. While Airos are the size of a young human, the ornidons might be the size of a rhinoceros, though wider and flatter. As long as that mist doesn't touch me, I should be fine. Plus, invisibility guarantees a one-hit kill. As long as I'm able to pierce or slash through its skin. Show me my status window again. Species, Pru health points, 30 out of 30 endurance points, 1050 out of 1050 stats, strength, 3 agility, 6 perception, 8 vitality, 3 endurance, 106 additional stats, attack, 7 defense, 355 skills, devour enhanced devouring invisibility night vision thermal vision heat resistance venomous fangs infectious cut spiderweb production. Infectious cut came from those weird rats. Basically, cutting them with my legs will produce a wound that will get infected pretty fast, right? In simple terms, yes, simple terms are good enough. Venomous fangs and infectious cut are my offensive skills. The thing is, Ray raised 2 of his limbs and stared. These 2 are coated by that metal they used to mine the ground. Very sharp tips. Attacking with my mouth as it is wouldn't be as good. It's round. I lack jaws which would allow me to leap forward and bite stuff off. Since the devouring is now more in my control, can I make my mouth like an Airos? Gain jaws, I mean? That would require adjusting a large part of the body, as you currently lack a skull to which the jaws would attack. Isn't that fine? It would be, Ray thought for a bit. A hermit crab with an actual head. That would look pretty scary. Especially if the head resembles that of those ugly Airos. Very true, but it is possible, yeah but. I still need to get on that spaceship. Having an Airo's head would make them see me as an enemy right away. If I am found out, of course. Still, the way I am right now, I look pretty harmless. It would be better to keep a harmless appearance for now. Ray nodded to himself. Alright. Let's look for these ornidons. The Airos closer to me are munching on Paris, while those further away are eating ornidons. They should be further away. Here they are. The Pru thought to itself once the targets were within its field of vision. Fucking hell. They look intimidating. Especially since they're sticking together so closely. Indeed, half a dozen ornidons were standing together. Each time one of their legs moved, it felt like the ground would shake. Is size taken into account when it comes to this devouring thing? Or is it about the number of creatures eaten? The size largely matters. Getting skills from those rats and spiders took a while. Then the bigger the creature is, the easier it is to gain a skill? Correct. Since it has to do with cells and genes, I suppose that makes sense. What matters isn't how many creatures of the same species I eat, but how many cells and genes. In that case, eating one big creature would give the number of cells and genes necessary, while for smaller ones, multiple would need to be eaten to acquire that required number or amount of cells and genes. Correct, the amount of cells and genes needed depends on the species, as well as the use, I see. Making a simple modification to my body or acquiring a simple skill doesn't require as much. Makes perfect sense. Ray thought as he stared at the herd of ornidons. The Pru started walking closer after activating the invisibility skill. Thermal vision aha. I can see spots on or inside their bodies where the heat is much higher. That's where the mist is produced and stored, right? Correct. The Pru looked around for a moment. Let's test how they react first. Only a couple of steps were necessary. Good thing you got me these tentacles, system. Ray chuckled internally, as he wrapped the end of his tentacle-like limb around a stone he found on the ground. He pulled the limb back, and threw it, aiming right at the closest ornidon. An angry grunt resonated, and was immediately followed by the ornidon stretching its head forward and, oh! Impressive diameter. The mist expelled was so hot that the stone that had hit the ornidon's body changed color. Though only for a moment. The rest of the ornidons, sensing the heat approaching, had moved a couple of steps away. A diameter of around 3 meters all around it. Ray smiled internally. All around it, except towards its head. Ha. He quickly started walking forward. Invisibility really does make things too easy. Chapter 16, Hunting Ornidon, slow and steady. Instead of going with his previous one-hit kill idea, Ray settled on something not so different. I'll position myself right under its nose, and use both the pincer on my right side, and a limb coated with metal from those drills on my left side. If I can hit with both at once, I should be able to damage its throat seriously. Additionally, the wounds will quickly get infected, even if that isn't enough to finish it off. Also, because of their heavy carapaces, they can't run like rhinos can. This is a piece of cake. Once half the distance between him and the Ornidon was crossed, Ray stopped for a second. Going for both hits at once might not be the best solution. I'd be wasting force on both to go through the skin. Slicing with the pincer, and then piercing with my metal-coated limb through the wound made by the pincer might be the best way of doing it. If I'm lucky, this might reach its brain, or, at least, give it breathing problems. The issue is that this takes a bit longer. It'll respond to pain and damage faster than to a stone thrown its way. The mist doesn't reach below its head, but the heat probably does. Still. Skill, heat resistance. I obtained this devouring those Hueco people. I assume the planet they come from is pretty hot, so this will come in handy. The Pru nodded to itself and walked closer. Damn. Gulp. The closer I get, the larger these guys look. Their strength might be enough to step on my shell and shatter it completely. It is not. Oh. Okay. Good to know. Thanks to invisibility, Ray managed to stand right in front of the Ornidon. Slowly. Slowly. Below its head. Slowly. The Ornidon's neck wasn't long, but it sure seemed thick. This made Ray's decision about where to cut a bit easier. The Pru opened up its pincer as wide as it could manage. Looks like I won't be able to cut a huge part. Way too thick. Still, the goal is just to make an entry point for my other limb. Actually, no. Ray could almost chuckle at how foolish the mistake was. I have so many limbs, I might as well use numerous at once. Why limit myself at 2? The sharp limbs coated by the metal were immediately pulled back. The pincers were brought forward, and 2 other limbs were prepared as well. It would only take a moment, but all 6 limbs would have to be used. The tentacles are too soft, so I'll use the others. The Pru took a deep breath in, before moving swiftly. The pincers were brought together, before being clamped at once. The cuts made became one, and blood started leaving the wound. Before the Ornidon could even react, the Pru used 2 other limbs to push the severed skin away and open, exposing the muscle below. An instant later, the metal-covered limbs, sharp as the drills used by the Hueco, pierced through the wound in 2 different but closed spots. The Pru pushed those as deep as it managed, piercing through muscle and tissue. Even once they were stuck, the Pru moved them around for a moment, before swiftly pulling them out, allowing for heaps of blood to descend upon the earth. The grunt had resonated. The Pru had only managed to take 4 steps away. The mist was expelled. Fuck. Fuck. He cursed internally, as he could feel the heat from that mist. Even though Ray wasn't within it, the mist was to his right and to his left. Your heat resistance skill fights off the heat produced by the Ornidon, your health points aren't decreasing, your endurance points decrease rapidly. This information made complete sense to Ray, who didn't feel his skin or body burn, but could feel himself grow more and more dehydrated by the second. The mist lasted for 8 seconds. The Pru had exited the area with 3 seconds left. In other words, he had spent 5 seconds surrounded by the mist. Endurance points, 400 out of 1050, in other words, more than 500 endurance points had been used up. I can't take another one of these. Indeed. Were his endurance points to reach critical levels, Ray would start losing health points. Health points, 30 out of 30, something that he absolutely cannot afford. I'll just stay away. For now. Noticing the bubbles of blood hanging below the Ornidon's throat and wounds, Ray was glad to notice that he had, indeed, perturbed the creature's breathing system. Doesn't look like there is more than these on this planet. I'll focus on them with the time I have left. It took about 20 minutes for the Ornidon to fall to the ground, gasping for air and grunting from the pain. The rest of the herd immediately distanced itself from it. A foul smell was coming from its direction. Infectious cut sure is powerful. Ray didn't feel dehydrated anymore, but it would take more time for his endurance points to recover fully. Using invisibility, he walked towards the crying Ornidon, and pierced through the same wound once again. This was enough to finish it. I'm still invisible, but if I start eating it, the rest will get suspicious. There's a lot I want from them. The ability to produce the mist, the ability to expel it, to resist the heat it produces, those claws. I'll have to devour quite a few if I want to get all of these abilities. Ray knew it was possible for one to be enough. Still, Why risk making the herd run away? Seeing their brethren's body slowly disappear would be enough to spook them out, wouldn't it? Too bad. I thought I could kill it with consecutive attacks. For the rest, I'll take my time. For the next 4 Ornidon, Ray would use his pincers to cut their throats, and walk away. Once the mist is expelled, he walks back closer, and pierces the wounds with the metal-covered limbs. The second step is repeated multiple times to ensure a faster death instead of waiting for them to bleed out, or waiting for the breathing problems to grow too severe the way they did for the first Ornidon. Your skill heat resistance becomes heat resistance LV.2. Your vitality stat increases by 1 stat point. Your vitality stat increases by 1 stat point. Your vitality stat increases by 1 stat point. You have developed the skill Burning Mist Production. Your vitality stat increases by 1 stat point. Your strength stat increases by 1 stat point. Your strength stat increases by 1 stat point. You have developed the skill Burning Mist Expulsion. Your strength stat increases by 1 stat point. Your strength stat increases by 1 stat point. Your strength stat increases by 1 stat point. It was, indeed, quite the haul. Chapter 17, Paris, Airos, Ornidon, and Kixum. I really got lucky then. The Pru thought as it munched on the Ornidon's bodies. When I moved to look at her coat, I was tempted to eat the gun. Good thing I didn't. That would have been way too greedy. A real problem, since she leaped towards it right away. With his stomach a bit more full, Ray thought about the earlier events. Yeah, that was something. He shook his head. Let's just focus on getting a more normal body for now. Being like this is unsatisfying, for more reasons than one. All 5 Ornidon were devoured. Status window. Species, Pru health points, 70 out of 70 endurance points, 1060 out of 1060 stats, strength, 8, agility, 6, perception, 8, vitality, 7, endurance, 106 additional stats, attack, 14 defense, 355 skills, devour, enhanced devouring, invisibility, night vision, thermal vision, heat resistance LV.2, venomous fangs, infectious cut, spiderweb production, burning mist production, burning mist expulsion. My strength stat increased a lot. I can already tell that I'd be able to push my sharp slims through their muscles more easily now. Vitality had a nice increase too. More than double the health points that I had before. I feel like my body got a bit larger too. The skills are obviously cool. Let's see. The Pru rotated its neck. Oh. These things that resemble holes on my skin right where my shell ends. That's where the mist is expelled from, right? Correct. You could have asked me where I wanted it to be expelled from. As you have devoured the necessary amount of Ornidon cells and genes, 2 expulsion points have been added to your body, these. And my mouth, right? Correct, perfect. You said the spray is highly combustible. Then all I would need is to create a spark to gain the ability to breathe fire, right? It isn't so simple, well, yeah. Not breathe fire like a dragon, but I would be able to produce something like an explosion? Right? If the mist is lit on fire? Hypothetically, yes, cool. The Pru nodded. This is a pretty damn good start. Ray raised half of his limbs, excluding the tentacles, those coated by metal, and the pincers. My attack stat increased to 14 because of these. The tip of those limbs had changed and turned into the sharp claws of Ornidon. A pretty damn good start. He repeated to himself internally. Ray looked around. The 5 unmoving Ornidon were gone. All that was left were drops and stains of blood on the ground. There doesn't seem to be another species on this planet. At least, not as far as I can tell. There's no sign of another one. Wait. Ray thought for a bit. The Paris can eat whatever. The Airos are obviously carnivorous. The Ornidons. Could they be herbivores? There's no plant life though. This is a planet light years away. Maybe they survive off something that's in the air. Anything is possible really. He gazed into the distance opposite to the direction of the spaceship. I'd like to get a taste of everything before leaving, but it doesn't seem like there is more. And I definitely don't want to miss takeoff. Maybe I'm better off leaving just as the Paru was about to turn around. Peek a worm. The glowing insect-looking creature's body exited the ground. Oh. So they weren't standing around for no reason. It didn't take long for dozens of them to exit the ground. What a strange color. Are they poisonous? They are called kicks. Their healing ability is very impressive. Consuming them often increases the consumer's ability to heal temporarily. Let's test it then. The Pru's pincers immediately moved forward. A second later, one of the kicks' bodies was split in two. Both sides twitched and slithered for a bit. 10 seconds later, one side of it stopped moving, while the other side started growing longer. Regeneration. Kind of like a lizard's tail, but with the whole body. If I devour this and gain a similar ability, that'd be close to what scientists hope to make on Earth for humans, huh? Ray grinned internally. Well then, he wrapped his tentacle-like limbs around two kicks. For science. Slimy. Yet satisfying. The Ornithon were waiting around for these to show their heads. Because of the Ornithon heavy bodies and the shaking they produce with their steps, the kicks stayed hidden. Ray looked around. There must be a way to tell where these guys reside under the ground. Eating a dozen of them is far from enough cells and genes to develop anything. It didn't take long for the part to notice. Drops of a neon green liquid? Same color as the kicks. They're rare, but now that I've seen them, I can notice them at different spots. Do they release them while traveling underground? Correct, something like peeing when caught by an avalanche. One could say, so they use it to remember which way is up and which is down. What do they need the surface for? Air? Well, that's the whole food chain, I suppose. Just because there are no Ornithon doesn't mean there are no kicks. I'll look for them on my way back. Hopefully, there will be enough of them. The Pru turned around. Quest, off this planet objective, leave the Miro planet in the next 14 hours. Reward, 1 skill point. Penalty, none. Time remaining, 6 hours and 2 minutes, more than enough time. And because of that, the Pru took his time, making no effort to look for the neon drops indicative of kicks. Oh. Using heat vision, I can see the drops from afar since they're warmer than the ground. The tiny kicks were slurped up one by one. The Pru wasn't particularly disgusted by that. If anything, it reminded him of eating pasta, which wasn't the worst thing to be reminded of. You have developed the skill Regeneration. Warning, while Regeneration can regrow body parts, it cannot regrow internal organs, so regrowing limbs? Correct, good enough for me. The Pru continued. Ray arrived at the spaceship with a couple of hours to spare. There was no one around. He assumed it wouldn't be the case for long. Guess I'll do that now. Chapter 18, Take Off in 10. Roka rubbed her sleepy eyes and tired face. I was so horny I ended up wasting most of the time allocated to sleep. TSK. As their commander, I can't get more time than them. Otherwise, morale will. Her whispers lasted for a while as she slowly pushed herself off the ground, changed her skin suit for another. Gross. Can't believe I didn't change before sleeping. I can't wait for this mission to end. Roka put her military coat, pants, and boots on, gently slapped herself on the face twice, and left the room. We're lacking a lot of things, she thought to herself while placing her gun into the holster around her hips. We lost most of our weapons. Just like we lost most of the unit. Still, we attained our goal. She walked across the large spaceship. Nothing bad happened while I was asleep, so that's a relief. Roka noted internally after getting a brief rundown of their progress from a female soldier. We should leave as fast as possible though. She gave orders, and the orders were transmitted. Huh? The commander wants to leave soon? But we just. Can't we rest a bit? The males protested a bit, but Roka made her orders clear. We're leaving as soon as we have enough fuel to reach the next closest location on which we can get more fuel. These invisible creatures are too dangerous. They've already taken 2 of us. The commander exited the spaceship. The retractable ramp was still lowered. Sleep rotations were ongoing. I hope we don't get into her eyes widened suddenly as she noticed it. A second later, a shot had been fired. Its shell is strong enough to withstand a bullet. I'll have to aim for its. Roka clicked her tongue as she stopped in her tracks. Retracting into its shell? How annoying. I can't get too close. I don't know how dangerous things are here. Dozens of meters away, holy shit. She shot right away. Ray watched over the scene while using his invisibility skill. Well, it is an alien she's looking at. I wonder how she will. Oh, getting closer to it? Oh. The reaction was close to what he had expected, but far from what he had hoped. Cautiously keeping her distance, Roka kicked the Pru's shell, turning it around, before shooting its defenseless body. Merciless. Hot. Ray thought to himself before shaking his head. I seriously need to get my head out of my ass. Seriously. He had carried that particular Pru off the Curio meteorite and placed it in front of the spaceship to see how they would interact with it. Knowing that Parus were harmless, he hoped that they wouldn't kill it right away. Well, I would do the same. The problem is, the same would have happened to me. It was harmless enough, so maybe I shouldn't have. Roka thought to herself as she stared at the Pru's lifeless body. Better safe than sorry. Not really knowing why, she continued staring at the strange creature. Looks pretty cute. Roka whispered to herself, before taking a seat on the ground. Her legs were crossed in the lotus position, and her right elbow rested on her right leg. Could have made a good pet. She rested the barrel of her gun against her cheek. Maybe for morale. Her hand was off the trigger. Ray thought she looked incredibly cool like that. But that doesn't matter. She would have killed me. Ugh. Well, I'll just have to figure out something later. It didn't take long for others to exit the spaceship, for the commander to issue additional orders, and for work to start getting done. Guess I'll chill for a bit while waiting for takeoff. I might not come back here after all. There wasn't much to see on the planet. The Earth was bare and dry. Up above though, it was a real spectacle. Dancing nebulas, shooting stars, planets that made the one he was on tiny, asteroids that circled around the Miro planet. All of it was above. He watched, while patiently waiting. They'll need to bring in their drilling machines and all, so I definitely have a lot of time left. Ray contemplated many things while watching the starry show above. His new life, his new body, his uncertain future, what he might encounter, what might happen. Overall, he was extremely optimistic about it all. These guys don't look very competent, so that might be the only way for this to go wrong. Us crashing on a random planet. Or into a black hole. Fucking hell. Ray chuckled internally. Though I suppose I only think this way because I know it. Because I've seen it. Alright. Time to leave. Your commander is pretty perverted. Well, so horny that. Who am I to judge though? Get everything in. Fast. And don't make too much noise. Come on. Get in. Yes, ma'am. The invisible crew thought to itself as it slipped past them and entered the spaceship. The retractable ramp started moving. Should go into the ventilation ducts? Or remain in the open? I have enough endurance points to keep switching between them. I'll wander around, and go into the ducts when in need of endurance points. The Paru followed the worker into one of the locked rooms he, previously, could not enter. Oh. So many screens. So many buttons. Orders were issued and executed. A couple of minutes later, every single individual was seated and ready for takeoff, with multiple seatbelts locking their bodies in place. Wait. I don't have that. I don't have anything like that. I might get thrown against the wall. Invisibility doesn't get rid of sounds. Take OFF in 10. 9. No. Wait. Chapter 19, Off This Planet. Having already tested it beforehand, the Pru wasted no time placing himself in the corner of the control room, before using his spiderweb production skill, creating a web to lock him in place and to the walls and ground. I don't know if this will be enough, but there was no other choice. The seatbelts used by the crew didn't seem special, so Ray assumed that some otherworldly technology was at play inside the room. I've already tested it, but it'll cause trouble later. Gotta focus on the now though. Indeed, the Pru had tested his spiderweb production while invisibility was active. The result was as he wanted it to be. The produced webs will be invisible, as long as they are not cut off or separated from his body. In other words, a thick protective web needed to be made with a single thread, without cutting off from the exit point on his body. Since producing and shooting the webs felt the same as spitting, this made keeping the thread linked to his body uncomfortable. Still, it'll probably be just at first. The acceleration is what I need to we're taking OFF. Roka shouted. Brace yourselves. The Pru did just that. On the numerous screens that filled the room, certain areas around the spaceship could be seen. The ground shook and trembled. Smoke covered the whole area. The rocks below the spaceship started shining brightly. We're off the ground. The spaceship took to the air, leaving the earth below cracked, and close to melting. Different than a plane. The acceleration will be forward after we're off the ground. Let's hope this. Following the crew right away wasn't the best decision. Had the Pru been in another room, the noise of him being knocked around probably wouldn't have been a problem. We stopped. That means the forward acceleration was coming. The Pru hurriedly used the time in which the spaceship wasn't in motion to make the thread much longer and, therefore, the web holding him in place thicker. The Pru thought that, after him leaving the control room, such a thick spider web being left behind and, to the crew, appearing out of nowhere would startle them. As the thread got longer and the web thicker, Ray thought that eating the spider web while the crew wasn't looking would be the best course of action for later. Brace yourselves. This time, it was the navigator shouting. The moment of truth. The Pru immediately took a deep breath in. Worrying wouldn't help. If the webs were to tear away and his body to be thrown and knocked around the room by the force, a calm mind would be necessary to choose the best course of action. Something getting knocked around isn't impossible. There's no reason to immediately think that there is something with them. Well, they might get suspicious since they know about the AIRO's invisibility, but still. At worst, I'll use the Ornithem's mist, making it seem like one of these pipes leaked or something. I'll find a way. Despite the navigator's shout, the spaceship was motionless. Ray's eyes widened, as he noticed that two of the large screens weren't screens, but windows. Dancing stars, flying meteorites, and shining nebulas were all that could be seen in front of them. The vibrant nebulas painted the empty space with countless shades and hues that mixed and intertwined. The Pru could feel its heartbeat go at a faster and faster pace. This acceleration, this place, this journey. What it would lead to. This life given to him. The possibilities were endless, and Ray quickly found himself lost in thought. It was while the Pru was lost in thought that the spaceship accelerated. The navigator needed to wait for the right time to pass through the shower of meteorites previously barring the way. The Pru. Oh. Barely noticed the acceleration. This spaceship is amazing in more ways than one. The Pru thought as it looked around the room. Good. The commander, Roka, took off her seatbelt and pushed herself off her seat. Rhea, make sure we don't deviate from our trajectory. Kreese, look for anything you can find about our target. Rhea, you do the same. Yes, Commander. That guy doesn't seem too happy. Ray noted internally. Wonder if it's because she told someone to assist him. The Pru thought about moving around, but decided not to for now. The crew was made up of 7 people. Colliding with any one of them would be a huge problem. I should just focus on not getting a game over. As long as I don't die. Or that they die. Ray clicked his tongue internally, thinking about the possibility of the crew dying and him being left alone inside a spaceship he could not operate in the middle of nowhere. I'd be drifting around the void for a while. Ah. Reminds me of the time when I was dead. Let's try not to get a repeat so soon. Congratulations, you have cleared the quest off this planet. You have obtained 1 skill point, right? Let's see. Skills: Devour, Enhanced Devouring, Invisibility, Night Vision, Thermal Vision, Heat Resistance LV.2, Venomous Fangs, Infectious Cut, Spiderweb Production, Burning Mist Production, Burning Mist Expulsion, Regeneration. How do skill points work exactly? They can be used to make your skills stronger, right? But that can also mean making them more efficient, right? Like making invisibility cost less endurance points per second. Correct, it is a possibility. In that case. Chapter 20, Pru made some. Commander, are you sure about this? I am. Roka interrupted. Got a problem with it? No, it's just that. Well. Kreese had trouble expressing himself, so, going back there is too dangerous. Elle said sternly. Those creatures almost destroyed our ship. They killed dozens of us. We can't just. It's the closest place to get more fuel. We can't waste any more time than we already have. But. Kreese started. But what? Fucking talk or shut up. There's no need to talk to him this way, Commander. Ugh, give me a break. If I knew he was going to spend his time crying instead of helping, I wouldn't have bothered bringing him along, Roka replied coldly as she walked away. We're going back to that hellhole. We just need a bit of luck. Then what was the point of going this planet? We barely obtained the fuel it took to go there. It was a wasted trip that cost us lives. And there's nothing I can about that. Being surrounded by strong creatures is better than invisible ones. We can see the former come at us, at least. Now, stop crying around. Get some work done. The invisible Pru watched silently from the corner of room. Damn. Putting the subordinates in their place. Hot. At least admit it was a terrible idea too, it wasn't. And it was agreed upon by everyone. Don't start crying just because the result isn't what we wanted it to be. Do you have a better idea? You don't, huh? Then shut the fuck up and get to work. She gets hotter every time. Ray chuckled internally. Those invisible creatures are far worse. What if we remained there too long and a dozen of them entered our ship? What if they damaged it? What if they killed us all in our sleep? Invisible aliens are far worse than strong ones. You got that right. The Pru nodded silently. Still, she does go a bit far. Hope there won't be some kind of coup. Well, doesn't matter to me. As long as someone can make this thing work. Sensing someone's approach, the automatic door slid open, and the commander left the control room. TSK. The males clicked their tongues, while the females sighed. I'm sorry about the commander. She goes way too far. I agree with you. We shouldn't rush into. Rhea was interrupted. Fucking simp. Rhea muttered while looking away. This fucking bitch. Rhea cursed internally. It doesn't matter. Kreese whispered, tears going down his eyes. We're close to being done anyways. But we have to make sure that we complete our mission. Too many have died for us to fail now. Right. Elle nodded as he stroked his crying companion's back. There were 80 of us at first. We lost a whole spaceship, and more than 70 of us. The commander really is horrible. Eto, shut up. Rhea interrupted. Things went badly, but we agreed with the commander every step of the way. She's the commander, so it's her responsibility. TSK, whatever. Rhea muttered as she looked away. This one is pretty hot too, huh? Half of our dead died on Zeria. Another half on that hellhole where we're going back. How is this anyone but the commander's fault? Sacrifices have to be made. Any one of us could have died, the commander included. Stop trying to pin your guilt on her. It's disgusting. Huh. You're obviously saying that because I'm none of this matters now. Kreese whispered as he wiped his tears. It's all to solve the energy crisis. As long as we manage to bring that zero crystal to the people. As long as we manage to do that. They all remained silent for a moment, each for different reasons, before nodding. By this time, the Pru had managed to eat every bit of the spiderweb he had used to lock himself in place. It wasn't useless, but... Ray shrugged internally. As one of the crewmates was about to exit the room, the Pru decided to follow. Guess I'll look around for a bit. Ray followed, but the instant he passed through the door, zero crystal. That sounds familiar. He stopped suddenly. The crewmate turned around. Whatever. He shrugged. It seemed like the door had some kind of glitch. Zero crystal, huh? The Pru thought as it walked, not even caring about the doors that had collided with its body. The Pru scratched its head. None of this matters now. It's all to solve the energy crisis. As long as we manage to bring that zero crystal to the people. Ray shrugged. Sucks to be them, I guess. Chapter 21, Support Pep. We've lost more than 70, it's true. The commander thought to herself while wandering around the spaceship. But each and every one of us knew what we were getting ourselves into. This mission was a desperate problem to save our civilization. Any one of us could have died. We're just part of the lucky ones. Roka couldn't help but tighten her fists as she walked. Her frustration and annoyance knew no bounds. But she was their commander. If she were to start focusing on the past, how would her soldiers do? We're going back to a planet where we lost more than 30. Roka whispered. We'll need to be quick and efficient. The same goal as the first time we got there. To obtain fuel. Should we land on the other side of that planet? But who knows what we'll find there. And there are only so many areas where we can. TSK. She massaged her tired eyes. I can't show doubt or uncertainty. We must get that zero crystal to our people no matter what. No matter the cost. But doing this is no easy feat. Especially if the soldiers start disagreeing with their commander's orders. Now that the number of soldiers decreased, it's much easier to state one's distaste or disagreement. I need to find a way to keep morale high. Finding and securing that zero crystal immediately gave everyone a great deal of energy and enthusiasm. But losing more people and... I can't let them start feeling despair or hopelessness. Not when we're so close to our goal. Roka's thoughts couldn't help but wander back towards, ugh. She sighed. I took that mutton since I thought it looked cool, but all of them thought it was disgusting and scary. Roka changed her course and started walking towards the room in which the mud was kept. Maybe I should have taken that thing as a pet. Looks unoffensive. I'm sure they would find it cute. A pet might help them take their mind off her. Whispering immediately stopped, and her whole body froze. 7 steps in front of her, stood the Paru. It stared dumbly at the wall before moving towards it. Don't move. Roka shouted as she reached for her gun. The Paru stopped for a moment, before continuing to walk towards the wall. TSK. She scratched her head with the bottom of her gun's grip. Of course, it wouldn't understand. Roka cautiously walked closer, while keeping her gun aimed at the creature in front of her. How did you get here? Remembering how harmless the previous creature of the same species was, she felt silly about being so on guard. Roka squatted down once a step separated her from the creature. She poked the creature's shell with the barrel of her gun, and the Paru slowly turned around. Please, don't shoot. Please, don't shoot. Please, don't shoot. The creature turned around, revealing its pincers. Unknowingly to Roka, the Paru was hiding some of its limbs inside its shell. Specifically, its tentacles, the metal-covered and sharp arms, as well as 2 others with sharp ends that weren't necessary to use when moving around. The Paru's goal was to look as harmless as possible. Roka stood back up, before placing her foot against the Paru's shell. The Paru let itself be pushed off its feet. Due to the curvature of its shell, the Paru's body rotated a bit. Guess it won't attack. Or maybe it just can't. Roka waited for the Paru to get back on its feet. The latter purposefully took more time than was necessary. Harmless, stupid, cute creature. That's what I gotta try to look like, right? Shouldn't be too hard. Especially since after that, I'll be in near proximity to the hot girls. I can already imagine them placing me on their thighs and stroking my body. Sounds nice. Though I don't plan on staying just a pet for 2 ba. Roka shouted as she suddenly placed her face in front of the Paru's eyes. The latter barely reacted. It walked away and started staring at the wall after a handful of seconds. Even when surprised, it doesn't do anything. Guess it would be fine to keep it. Roka nodded to herself. They'll go crazy for you, you know. she whispered as she placed her hand against the Paru's shell. Crazy for me, huh? The Paru smirked internally. Let's fucking go. The commander took a couple of steps away from the Paru. Alright. Follow me. She gestured. The Paru stared dumbly, before walking into the wall. Shit. If it's too dumb, I won't have the patience to keep it around. Yes, sir. Roka stared for a bit. Come here. Look. The gun is so shiny. An alien isn't a fucking cat. And don't use a gun. Still, the Paru acted mesmerized, and followed the shining gun that was being waved. Roka was completely right. Just like she thought and said, they went completely crazy for the cute and harmless Paru. And just like the Paru had imagined, it didn't take long for their hands to be placed on his body. The Paru was even being hugged. Not only that, it didn't take long for his body to be lifted, and placed on their thighs. There was only one problem. This isn't the type of attention that I wanted. You're so cute. So very cute. Kreese whispered as he hugged the Paru on his thighs. I didn't want male attention. Chapter 22, Next Target, Hueco. A quest has been issued. Quest, Planet Discovery. Objective, land on the Till planet, and explore it, coming across its most notable species. Reward, 2 skill points. Penalty, none. Now that the crewmates and the commander were aware of the Paru's existence and presence on their spaceship, the Paru could move a bit more freely. Rhea. How long until we reach our target? The trip will take around 30 hours. We have enough fuel for about 40, so if we don't deviate too much, we should be able to make it. Rhea was the spaceship's navigator. A very valuable crewmate. Without her, it would be a struggle to operate the spaceship. She's pretty hot too. Kreese, Rhea. Did you find anything? The commander asked. Kreese hugged the Paru on his thighs a bit tighter. Fucking let go of me. You. Looking through the database isn't easy now that fire is gone. We also lost all of the that wasn't my question. Roka interrupted. Rhea? There's nothing particularly interesting about the atmosphere or climate there. Unlike the planet we left earlier, this one has an abundance of flora. Rhea explained. The creatures living there aren't as diverse as one might expect. Those we encountered last time remain the primary problem we will face. They also cover most of the planet and live in tribes. It's virtually impossible to find an area on that planet where they don't live. But since they live in tribes, there is plenty of empty space between those tribes' territories. Buying time will be necessary, as they won't accept someone challenging their authority over their territory. Anything in the space between the tribes' territories will be seen as a threat. We'll need to get lucky then. Anything else? Kreese. Rhea placed her hand on his shoulder. Could you? Why yes. With Ellen Rhea's help, Kreese managed to get the Paru off his thighs and carefully place it on the ground. Finally. The Paru rolled its eyes. Kreese walked towards the center of the room. The species we came across last time is ferocious and territorial. Their strength is extraordinary, and they stand on 2 feet. Their height can reach 3 meters tall, and their skin is tough enough to stop most bullets. They're called granuliths and dumb. Buttons were pressed, Kreese scrolled a bit and, looking through the database, I managed to find another species known to live on that same planet. Landing in their territory might be the way for us too. But it's still. A side quest has been issued. Side quest, Brethrens. Objective, devour 6 Huecos. Reward, none. Penalty, none. No reward? I'll think about it. The next second, a hologram appeared at the center of the room. Cool. The Paru thought to himself. Looks like a frog with horns. Kreese stared at the hologram for a bit, before continuing his explanation. This particular species is peaceful, and less territorial. They don't attack as quickly and suddenly as granuliths do, but these Huecos still have the strength to fight off granuliths and defend their own territories. Something so cute is able to fight off granuliths? Back, the mechanic asked. Granuliths killed so many of us. Even one was. That's right. Kreese scratched his head. They may look cute but... Kreese clicked on a series of buttons and... According to the database, their size can reach... The hologram started changing. Holy shit. Even cooler. The Paru thought to itself. 3 meters in height, and 5 meters in length, head to tail. Their bodies also weigh about 3 tons. Even knowing that, it's surprising that they would be able to fight off granulates. Roka argued. The database also explains something else about Huecos. Kreese clicked another button. As he explained, the Paru's eyes started turning wider. Huecos have the capability of controlling and manipulating the shapes of their bodies. Huh? Their unique genetic makeup allows them to temporarily change their limbs into sharp blades. This is the only bodily manipulation that Huecos are capable of. Well. The only one recorded. Huh, that's right, Commander. The manipulation is recorded to last less than 10 minutes, but... I believe we shouldn't account for it being temporary. Additionally, Witsos might have the ability to change their bodies in more ways than none. Large size and the ability to manipulate part of its body into a blade capable of piercing through the Grand Elite's bulletproof skin? Troublesome. Roka muttered as scratched her chin. The Pru could only salivate at the thought. The genetic ability to change one's body, even temporarily. A side quest has been issued. Side quest, Brethrens. Objective, devour 6 Witsos. Reward, none. Penalty, none. That would be perfect for me. Chapter 23, Crewmates. 2 In less than an hour, the Pru had come into contact with every member of the unit. Unfortunately, those who were most fond of him were those he didn't want such attention from. The commander, Roka, was one of those who interacted the least with the Pru, which was a shame. Other than Roka, there were 3 other females inside the ship. Rhea, the navigator. She was mostly carefree and disinterested in most of what was happening. Rhea, who had been tasked with helping Kreese look through the database for information. Because of the white blouse she adorned, the Pru assumed she was some kind of scientist or engineer. The last was Liz. She was shy, and mostly kept to herself. She's cute, but they mostly see her as quiet instead of shy, which is kind of annoying. As for the males, the Pru didn't really care. The mechanic, Back, was obviously important. Kreese would always hug or pat the Pru, so it was unavoidable that the Pru would remember him. As for the others, L and J, the Pru didn't bother even remembering their names. Once it was time for them to take their meals, the crewmates separated, and the Pru was taken by. Oh, for fuck's sake. A piece of meat was dangled above the Pru. I wonder what it eats. Kreese whispered. Should we give it a name? Yes. Let's call it. I'm a bad bitch and I've won at life. Kreese scratched his head before turning towards the Pru. It's nicer than the one the commander brought that time. I like this one. Oh, who cares about a damn pet? We've won at life, Kreese. I can barely believe it when I think about it. Jay muttered as he let his body sink into the chair's rest. We'll be heroes once we're back. Absolute heroes. Jay talked just loud enough for the table at which the commander and the other females were seated to be unable to hear him. Since most of the crewmates had died, the cafeteria was empty, and there was enough space for them to spread. What's your point, Jay? Kreese asked after the piece of meat he had been dangling was grabbed by the Pru. The Pru, trying to look as cute as possible, grabbed the piece of meat with its left pincer, lowered it, then used its right pincer to cut a small part of it off, and held that small piece to its mouth, slowly eating it. The attempt at looking cute was a success. So cute. Huh? Don't you get it? Jay smiled widely. We'll be heroes. We'll have status. I'm sure we'll be flooded by rich gals wanting a piece of us. We're going to get rich. I can already see it. A bunch super hot women who are also super rich. I'm going to drown in marriage proposals. You. Kreese nodded without really listening. I'll live an easy life, spending her money. The dream life is mine. I've won. Oh. Even if she's not the hottest, that would be fine too. I can always divorce her and get a bunch of money. No matter how much I see it, this is such a win. Kreese's eyes narrowed, and his gaze moved from the Pru to Jay repeatedly. You're kind of a whore, aren't you? Nah ha ha ha. The Pru started walking away from their table. Can't say I hate Kreese. This Jay guy really is. They've been at it for a year and a half. I suppose anything to get them through it is nice to think about. The Pru wandered randomly without leaving the room. I doubt whatever they eat would have any special properties. They won't give me enough to develop any skill in the first place. Oh, by the way. Rhea shouted as she rose from her seat. Everyone can take showers. Hot water is back on. Oh. Finally. Yee. Let's We're low on energy. Why would we waste it this way? Roka interrupted as the guys cheered. It's no issue. The 40 hours worth of fuel I calculated took into account the energy spent on leisure. The commander scratched her chin. I suppose it's alright then. To the showers. Jay shouted as he pointed, cheerfully. Maybe we should wash. Huh, where is? Fuck no. Fuck. No. I am not washing with the guys. Come on, Jay. It's been too long since we last had a hot shower. Kreese looked around the room for a bit. Alright. The Pru only left its hiding place once the guys were out of the room. Hiding under the table? Rhea asked as she crouched. You do need a wash, to be honest. My god, you stink. Probably the blood. The Pru thought to itself. So, Roka. Rhea started. What are we going to do about this? The guys don't like you a lot. Maybe I should assume the role of commander. I get along with them just fine. She said in a joking tone. That's only because you never disagree with them. Rhea muttered while looking away. What was that? Rhea's eyes narrowed. I think we should just focus on the mission. Liz whispered. Yes. Roka scratched her head, an annoyed expression on her face. Thankfully, there are no intelligent beings where we're going. But that's also the problem. There's no way of communicating with them. Because of our first time there, we're lacking in ammo. Rhea grabbed a piece of meat and threw it a couple of steps away for the party to eat. But we can use our plasma guns. It uses the same fuel as the ship, but we don't really have a choice. Using them will allow us to gain more time and get more fuel. But the more we hurt a Granilith, the more there are of them who die, the more of them come for us. That's what happened last time. Killing them might not be a good idea. Rhea argued. Do you have a better plan? The commander asked. Ha. Coming up with plans isn't my job. Well, except if you want it to be. Ugh. Rhea pushed herself off her chair. This bitch is so annoying. I'm going to take a shower. I'll go too. Huh? I like showering alone. The baths are made for multiple people, so it should be fine. Liz argued. Fine, fine. Rhea shrugged. The two walked away from the table, and the Paru followed them. Ugh. Rhea pushed the large bathroom's door open. Of course, there were 2 large bathrooms. Liz was already inside. Annoying that someone has to be in with me, but... Rhea tried closing the door behind her, but it was stuck. What are you doing? She asked while staring with narrow eyes at the Paru trying to enter the bathroom. I am not showering with a pet in the room. Her bare foot pushed against the Paru's shell, and the room was closed. HPMH. This is troublesome. The Paru stared at the closed door. 2 beauties showering beyond this door. I can't let the opportunity go. At the same time, I don't want them to see me as a pet. It's fine for the guys, but I do want the girls to see me differently somehow. My body will keep changing, so, at some point, I will definitely. The Paru thought for a bit. I guess there's only one way, really. The Paru used its heat vision skill, and stared at the scene through the door. Fuck. The hot water and steam make it useless. I wanted to enter once they've already started showering, but might as well just go in now. The Paru stealthily and quietly wrapped the end of one of its tentacle arms around the door handle and entered the room. Chapter 24, Bath with Beauties. The room was well lit, but the steam made it difficult to see through. 24 shower heads protruded from the walls. On the other side of the large bathroom, a circular bath occupied by. The bitch took the bath. Rhea cursed internally. Ugh. Guess I'll just take a quick shower. 2 minutes later, the Paru entered the room, and closed the door behind it. Due to the active shower heads, the sound of the door opening and closing was indiscernible. It only took a couple of steps for a beauty to enter the Paru's field of vision. She was standing facing the wall, with her chin up, and her eyes closed. Drops of water slowly and lasciviously went down her body, as if trying to hang on to it for as long as possible. She passed her hands over her small breasts and thin waist, before bending down to pass them over her legs, accentuating her round and thick bottom. While Rhea's front side was rather lacking, her backside was all the more impressive. Her short hair would have given her a boyish appearance, were it not for her curves and soft facial features. She noticed the Paru, and turned in its direction. The latter almost activated its invisibility skill. What are you doing here? Rhea muttered as she turned to face it. Apostrophe. Rhea shrugged a moment later, and continued showering. The Paru walked across the room, though pulling his gaze away from Rhea's body and presented backside was no easy feat. Hey, can you pass me the shampoo? Liz asked, sitting with her legs straight under the water that filled the bath. The rest of the bathroom was behind her. She was sitting with her back against the bath's edge, and her arms over it. From that position, the Paru could clearly see Liz's well-developed musculature. Her back muscles, shoulder muscles, as well as arm muscles, had clearly been well-trained. She was very toned and fit. The Paru assumed that, if Rhea was one of the ship's navigators, and Rhea some kind of scientist, then Liz had clearly joined the mission as a soldier. A couple of scars here and there stood on her arms, but they were barely noticeable. She's shy and quiet, but appearances can be deceiving, huh? The Paru thought to itself, before passing her the shampoo bottle. Thanks. Huh? Liz's eyes immediately narrowed as he furrowed her brows. Did it just? While remaining calm and collected, she slowly moved away from the edge she had been sitting with her back against. Rhea. Are you seeing this? What is it? I'm showering. I do not want to look at your tits. I asked for the shampoo and what? Get on with it. Rhea didn't even bother turning in Liz's direction. The pet, handed me the shampoo. Okay, and? Rhea's body froze. Wait, seriously? Yes, I'm telling you. Rhea turned in Liz's direction, full of doubts. She stepped closer while keeping her gaze locked on the Paru. Go there. Rhea pointed. The Pru obeyed. There. The Pru did so. So you're not as dumb as you look. Rhea turned away, revealing once more her impressive backside. That's your reaction? Not all pets are stupid, are they? Who gives a fuck? Damn, she's hot. Isn't it dangerous? Having something that isn't dumb around? We already have Rhea and Jay. We don't need more dumb fucks. Haha. Liz stared at the Paru for a bit. As a soldier, it was her job to identify and get rid of threats. Spin. It did. Hand me the hairbrush. The Paru did just that. Liz nodded. Cool. She muttered before standing up. Her body left the water, revealing her toned core and breasts. Hadn't noticed you had more than 2 arms. Leg by leg, she moved over the edge of the bath. Her thighs were slim, but perfectly defined. I do wonder how smart you are. Liz whispered as she crouched in front of the Paru. Crouching like that left nothing to the imagination. The Paru could fully see her lower lips, as well as that's enough for me. Liz stood back up before stretching her arms and walking away. I'll be out in a bit too. About a minute later, the Paru was alone. He waited in there. Waited for the one he really wanted to see. The thick, beautiful, and perverted the door was opened. Heard you're smarter than you look. Rhea whispered. It's my job to study the species we come across so. She let her clothes fall and hit the ground, revealing her plump and large breasts. Let's do that while I shower. Chapter 25, Bath with Beauties, 2. Once again, a naked beauty crouched in front of the Paru. Her hands gently passed over its shell. Knock knock tough shell. Only partly covered by crystals. Interesting. Her hands moved down towards the limbs that the Paru was using as legs. Sharp ends similar to claws. Strange to develop that for the legs, but evolution has brought on stranger things. Every time that Rhea moved, the angle at which the Paru could stare at the area between her legs changed. Additionally, Rhea stood back up, and her large plum breasts jiggled. Sharp pincers. She took hold of them, and gently moved them in a circular fashion. Not much mobility, partly due to the shell. Rhea and Rhea were opposites when it came to their strong points. Well, for Rhea, it was her backside that looked incredible. For Rhea, the front side was the obvious strong point. That. Rhea pointed before opening her hand. Place it on my palm. The Paru placed the end of its tentacle arm on her palm. More mobility than for the other limbs. Perfect for grabbing things. She gently squeezed on the tentacle arm, which made it twitch for a moment. Squishy and soft. She brought her face closer to the Paru's. Sharp fangs, but the absence of jaws and the circular shape of the mouth makes it unlikely for your species to be predatorial. The sunken spots of tissue and enlarged pores are the product of either evolution being whimsical and random, or the ability to spray some kind of fluids. Rhea brought the back of her hand to her forehead, before letting out a sigh. It's pretty hot in here, but you don't seem to be sweating from those. They must have some other use. Indeed, it was. And the sweat that was starting to cover her body was proof of it. All in all, you should be safe to be around. Rhea turned around and looked through the clothes she had discarded moment earlier. I'll use this for good measure though. Something similar to duct tape was wrapped around the Paru's pincers, so that they couldn't be opened. Alright. Rhea sighed again, before passing her hand over her breasts to wipe off the sweat it had built up. You're good to go. She turned away, and stepped below the showerhead. A couple of seconds passed, and Rhea turned around. Still here? The Paru's right tentacle arm was wrapped around the soap bottle. It squeezed it onto its left tentacle, with a bit too much strength, leading to much of the soap drip down onto the ground. It slapped the soap it managed to keep onto its shell, before walking closer. Fuck no. I am not washing you. The Paru tapped its shell with the tip of its tentacle arm. I said no. The Paru scratched the front part of its shell, which made Rhea chuckle. Don't think too hard, or you'll get a headache. The Paru scratched its shell a couple more times, before pointing at Rhea, then pointing at its shell. I'm not doing it. By the way, this kind of communication does raise your level of intellect by quite a bit. I'll need to sift through the database, if I have the time. The Paru pointed at itself, then at Rhea. Stopped pointing, then pointed at Rhea, before pointing at itself. Huh? Rhea couldn't help but chuckle at the proposal. You're saying you'll do me, then I'll do you? The Paru internally rejoiced at the way Rhea phrased that sentence, and nodded. Ha. That's funny. I'm used to intelligent species, but this in-between is pretty amusing. Rhea walked away, and took a seat, keeping her legs stuck together, on the edge of the bathtub. Actually, this in-between makes it. The Paru was truly devouring her with its eyes. Pretty weird too. She stared at the Paru just as intensely as it stared at her, before slowly, almost teasingly, spreading legs apart. Ha. Ha. Rhea's breathing had suddenly turned heavy. Despite her exposing herself, There was no reaction from the Paru. Or, at least, it seemed that way. I can't believe it. She muttered, placing her hand against her face, before throwing her hair back. The fact that your level of intellect is in a gray area. Her face was flushed, whether that was from the heat inside the steam-filled room or not. Is so arousing. Gulp internally, the Paru smirked nervously. Unlike the commander who had no experience with men, Rhea had quite a bit of experience. She was used to making men fall in love with her, all so that she could use them for a night, and disappear from their lives. In the year and a half since the start of their mission, Rhea had suffered like no one else. With no one to touch her, no one to sleep with her, no one to. No matter her attempts, the males were chaste, and wouldn't allow for anything to happen. It was as if they had no desires of their own, waiting to return to their homes, before getting married. Rhea could feel her body heat increase, as the Paru stared at her. I guess. Fuck. She muttered, as her hand moved up her inner thigh. The commander isn't the only perverted one. Alright. Rhea muttered as she breathed heavily. I'll take you up on your offer. She lay on her side, on the edge of the bathtub, her plum breasts appearing even larger in that pose. Take that soap, and clean every inch of my body. She smiled nervously. If someone was to come in now, only then will I return the favor. The Paru took a deep breath in. Spending a year and a half locked up. Anyone would turn into a pervert, huh? The Paru started walking closer. Good for me. Chapter 26, Bath with Beauties, 3. Even if someone were to enter, it wouldn't look that weird. Rhea thought to herself. First of all, doing experiments on alien species is my job. Second, I'm just using the pet as a slave or servant to get my body cleaned. Yep. That's all there is to it. She could feel her heartbeat grow louder and louder as the Paru grew closer and closer. The fact that I'm using it for something else, or that I'm getting aroused by thinking about, is impossible to prove. Anyone even alluding to that, I'll call a pervert right away. Seconds later, the Paru was standing inches away from her. She was still lying on her side, on the edge of the bathtub. Rhea rested her cheek against her hand. Just like it had before, the Paru squeezed on the soap bottle, coating its tentacle arm with it. Those squishy and soft tentacles. I do want them over my body. She was surprised at her own lust, at its intensity. Using an alien like this is definitely. The Paru remained unmoving for a moment, as drops of the thick and creamy soap went down its tentacle, before hanging on for a second, and falling to the ground. Come on. Rhea said, her eyes burning with craving. We don't have all day here. The Paru moved slowly, as it reached forward with its tentacle-like arm. Rhea couldn't help but gulp. She could feel the heat inside of her grow. Anticipation. She was pent up. She had been for a while. And to get rid of that pent-up feeling, she would use anything she could. Only in this instant, as the Paru's tentacle-like arm approached her body, did she realize that. The Paru's tentacle was squishy and soft. Adding the soap to it made it slippery and... Rhea shut her mouth and eyes, and shook her head. I seriously would have let out a moan if. Additionally, the soap was cold. Much colder than her skin, now heated up by both the steam that filled the room and the lust that filled her. The Paru had placed its tentacle on the side of her calf. Oh, yes. Rhea whispered as the tentacle slowly moved up and down the side of her calf. This does feel nice. The Paru took its time, covering every square inch of her calf with the soap, before reaching towards it. Let me help you with that. Rhea took hold of the soap bottle. Put them together. The Paru stuck its tentacle arms together, and Rhea poured enough soap on them for some to drip to the ground. Seeing the creamy soap languidly fall that way seemed to arouse her further. Rhea lay on her stomach, with her hands, one above the other, below her chin. Go on. Wasting no time, the Paru climbed onto the edge of the bathtub. Noticing this, Rhea spread her legs slightly, allowing space for the Paru to stand between her ankles. The view was incredible. And unlike what Rhea seemed to think, she wasn't the only one with lust. Each time that the cold soap came into contact with her heated body, Rhea twitched slightly. The Paru's tentacle-like arms moved up her legs, before stopping for a moment. I should probably skip her ass for now. But if I skip her ass, that would be suspicious, wouldn't it? Surprised by the pause taken, Rhea started turning around. But before she could do so, oh, yeah. Keep going. Just like that. Rhea whispered as her sensitive bottom was caressed and fondled. To avoid suspicions, the Paru quickly moved onto her lower back. Doing so meant standing just beyond her knees. Rhea stuck her legs together, and the Paru's legs moved onto each side of her upper thighs. Fuck. The Paru was close enough that, had it the body it wanted, right here, right now, it would be able to. This is exactly the view I would have. While fucking her. The Paru thought to itself while absent-mindedly passing its tentacle arms over Rhea's lower back and sides. She moaned as her waist was touched, unable to keep it in. Holy shit. Rhea cursed through her teeth, and her back suddenly arched. A second later, she lay on her back. The beauty was breathing heavily, and so was the Prue, though it was more difficult to notice in the Prue's case. I might just. Rhea's muttering was interrupted by an uncontrollable moan, as the Prue's tentacles had directly aimed for her plump and large breasts. Seeing it had been massaging the lower back and waist, and moving upwards, it was only logical to keep moving upwards. She attempted to reach for the tentacles, but her arms failed her as a powerful shiver suddenly went down her spine, making her whole body twitch. Wait, yes. The tip of the Prue's tentacle-like arms fondled, caressed, and wrapped around her breasts, as well as playfully passed over and fiddled with her erect nipples. You're fucking good at this. A chuckle escaped Rhea's mouth as she moaned. Cleaning each other is pretty normal for many species. I doubt you understand. But if you do. A wide smile appeared on her blushing face. That would make more arousing in a way. The Prue, whose body was burning up too, moved to grab the soap bottle once more. But instead of pouring it on its tentacle-like limbs, it directly. Oh. Holy fuck. Rhea muttered through her moans. Her hands quickly and repeatedly opened and closed. A large portion of the bottle had been poured directly onto her stomach. After playing with her stomach and sensitive sides for a bit, the Prue started moving down her body again. It was the easiest way to get where he wanted. As the Prue got to her ankles, just like she had when on her stomach, Rhea spread her legs. It stood once more between her ankles, then between her knees. An uncontrollable urge took over Rhea's body, brimming with sensitivity and overcome by lust. When was the last time she had been touched this way? She couldn't remember. Because she hadn't ever been touched this way. Indeed, even when sleeping with males, she always needed to take control of the situation, to make it happen, and to lead. Because if she didn't, nothing would happen. The males would usually simply lay on their back, and wait. Wait for her to. Oh, yes. Being touched this way was completely new to her. Her back instinctively rounded. Her ankles rose into the air, and her knees were folded. In front of the Prue, a beauty spreading herself open for him. Chapter 27, Bath with Beauties, for Rhea's body had moved at once, and seemingly without any input from her. Her ankles rose into the air, her knees folded, her legs spread away from one another, and her hands reached for her knees, holding them in place. In front of the Prue, was her drenched and twitching. For a moment, it seemed like time had stopped. The Prue couldn't believe that such a beauty was presenting herself to him so openly. So lustfully. It was completely different than that time with the commander. Rhea was awake. Conscious. Just as lustful. Willing. Begging. Rhea, on the other hand, couldn't believe that she had just moved this way, that she had gone this far, that her body was this heated for. Neither moved. Both were frozen in time and space. Go on is what the salivating Prue waited for her to say. She couldn't bring herself to say that, despite wanting to. Neither could tell what was about to happen, where it would go. And neither had the strength to express what they wanted. Any outcome would be welcomed. Isn't that what Rhea is saying by spreading her body this way? Her lust was such that anything could happen. The Paro etched this image in view in his mind. The day his body would change, and be a body capable of. He would. He definitely would. And would make sure that it happens. This exact view. To show itself again in the future. But until now. Gulp anticipation filled Rhea, as well as a tinge of nervosity. If those tentacles were to touch her there, how would it feel? If someone was to enter then, how could it be explained? Would there be a way to explain it without? Rhea did not care anymore. It didn't matter. It wasn't about the year and a half spent on this mission anymore. She had never felt this way. To hell with what they might say or think. Right here, right now, is all that mattered. The Prue's tentacle moved, and Rhea bit on her lower lip. Due to her spread and folded legs, she couldn't see where that tentacle had gone. Where it was going. This made the heat inside her burn hotter and hotter as she waited. Her whole body was trembling in anticipation. Her haggard breathing had basically turned into a succession of huffs and puffs. Would the tip of that tentacle caress her lower lips? Would it touch and play with her throbbing and twitching sweet spot? Would it do neither and, instead, push its way through her lower lips? Rhea had no idea, and she couldn't wait to find out. Leaving completely open, she felt a sudden rush of ecstasy, as she was overwhelmed with laughter. Never had she gotten anywhere with a male, or got any pleasure, if she wasn't the one running towards it. But now. Now. The Prue purposefully took its time, and noticed that Rhea's crotch was getting wetter and wetter with each passing second. Had his body been different, he would have been able to answer to her heat with his own. To thrust and enter her. Too. But for now, The heat inside of him wouldn't quiet down, no matter how much he touched her. For that very reason, he waited for Rhea's anticipation to reach its summit, before swiftly and in one motion, oh! Rhea's shoulders rose and her eyelids twitched. Caressing her ass in an upwards fashion, so as to caress the back of her thigh. This was enough to send waves of pleasure up and down her body, making it instantly quiver and convulse uncontrollably. No, wait, the convulsing was such that her whole body moved to curl up, taking the Prue who had been standing between her legs with her, into the full bathtub at their side. Splash! Even after her body fell into the water, and her bottom reached the bathtub floor, her body's uncontrollable shaking as well as the waves of pleasure didn't stop. Her facial expression and blushing made that more than obvious. Hey! Someone shouted from beyond the bathroom door. You done yet? Why yes. Coming. Rhea shouted, and she wasn't lying. She tried standing up right away, but found herself weak in the knees. It took a bit of time before she was able to stand up and leave the bathtub. She took a couple of steps away, before turning around towards the Prue who had exited the bathtub. This wasn't enough. Not nearly enough. But it was a nice change of pace. She chuckled, a cheeky smile on her face. Meanwhile, the Prue felt exhausted. Not physically, but mentally. Being unable to do anything with this lust of his. Basically blue balls 24/7. Beyond the door was Roka, the commander. Catching a glimpse of her gave the Prue a sudden burst of energy but, Alrigged. Rhea clapped her hands together, before wrapping a towel around her body. You're coming with me. Huh? Wait. I still have something to do. We're going to be good friends, the two of us. Rhea whispered as she grabbed the Prue from the tentacle, and pulled it away. As they exited the room, Roka stepped into it. The door was closed, and he could hear the sound of her clothes hitting the ground. Oh, now that I think about it. I didn't wash your shell, did I? Chapter 28, Gals and Guys. Hello, people. How is everyone doing? Rhea's stone-made eyebrows raised. What's got her in a good mood? Rhea asked, suspicious. Who knows? Liz muttered. The drag Prue looked around. They even have a room for changing after showering. Damn. They do live in luxury. The Prue's eyes scanned the room, before stopping dead on the girls. Even though he had seen them naked, seeing them in underwear made it. I really got into heaven. The Prue massaged its closed eyes for a moment. I might explode if this keeps going. Heaven or hell, I can't tell right now. Rhea looked their way, but was facing away from them. That ass is heavenly. My god. This is so unfair. It's so unfair that I can't. You sure took your time. Liz muttered as she put her gloves on. Using the brain requires more rest than using one's muscles, you know. Liz threw her hair back. It was longer than Rhea's or Rhea's. Holy shit, what a body. In underwear, her well-developed body was accentuated even further. Perhaps it was because of the after-effects of the hot bath inside the steaming room that her arms adorned veins here and there. Her skin wasn't as red as that of the other crewmates. All in all, the Prue could only pray that the time for him to obtain a proper body would come soon. Rhea quickly got dressed. A skimpy dark dress that accentuated her notable features, as well as a white coat on top. The group exited the room a minute later. So? Is it safe to be around? Liz asked while peeking at the Prue from the corner of her eye. I see you tapped its pincers. Rhea thought while holding the tip of her index finger to her chin. I'm still not sure yet. Her lips curled up into a sadistic smile as she turned towards the Prue. I still have more tests to run. It would be safer for everyone for it to remain with me. The liar. I see. Liz nodded. Who cares about the pet? Rhea muttered as she scratched her head. What do we think about this Till situation? Till. Oh, that's the planet we're going to. The commander talked. Rhea shrugged. Wouldn't look good if I started disobeying orders, would it? This isn't very constructive. Oh, shut up, Liz. Rhea rolled her eyes. I'm just joking. Going back is probably our best option. An unknown planet with invisible creatures is a nightmare. You. Rhea nodded, her eyes narrow. You're not joking when the guys are around. What's wrong with trying to get some dick? Rhea shrugged as she raised her arms dismissively. So you admit to being a playing man-eating whore? Rhea sighed. It only took a year and a half. Well. Ha ha ha. Rhea laughed as she scratched her head. The sound of footsteps resonated, coming from just beyond the corner. Watch her whole personality change once there are guys around. The commander Geos TOFR. We SHULD list 10 to T he guis co NC or NS. Liz said with a childish voice, obviously mocking Rhea. The latter's eyes narrowed. Not you two. Liz looked away. They really are cute together. So, I suppose this is goodbye, Rhea. We'll meet the real you again once the guys aren't with us. Huh. I don't do that. You kind of do. Liz muttered. Well, I don't. But even if I did, I won't anymore. She raised her arms, holding the tips of her thumbs together with the tips of her index fingers. I have ascended, you see? Rhea said with a serene voice. Shut the fuck up. Rhea cursed with a sigh. You really are in a good mood though. You should take baths more often. Yes. Rhea smiled. She peeked at the paru from the corner of her eye. I really should. Oh, fuck no. The guys and gals met, and stopped to talk for a bit. Kreese immediately crouched and reached for the paru's shell, petting it. Thank God I didn't go with them. Even seeing him crouch with clothes on makes me uncomfortable. Had it been while showering. Ugh. The guys decided to go check out how many rations were left, as well as take a peek at the garden in which vegetables were cultivated. The gals, on the other hand, decided to go check out the guns and ammunition. Counting how much ammo they had left was a priority, especially since they were going to the fearsome Till planet once more. The group separated and, what are you doing? It has to be done. Nuu. Come here. I must go. The Pru started walking away. If I stay around these beauties too long, I might just explode. But I still have more tests to go. It was truly a heartbreaking separation, as the Pru chose to follow the guys instead. When did you grow so close to the pet? Rhea asked, confused. It's weird seeing you like this. Shut up. An hour and a half later, the crewmates, accompanied with the Pru, assemble once again in the command room. A meeting where all the available information about the Till planet will be shared. Following this meeting, the Granoliths and Huetzos become way more important for the Pru's goals. Chapter 29, 2 targets. The commander has absolutely lost her mind. And not taking our concerns into mind is just. Kreese nodded. But we have to cut her some slack. It's tough to Jay interrupted. Why should we cut her some slack? You're too nice, Kreese. She's a horrible commander, and everything she has done has been a mistake. Everything ended horribly. That's easy to say now. Kreese whispered. I just hope it won't turn the same way it did that time. It is a horrible mistake. The Granoliths destroyed us. We lost so many people. And equipment. Back added. Leave it to the mechanic to care about equipment. I see you've, at least, washed your hands. Why are always on my ass, Jay? Being a mechanic is a woman's job. Obviously. Jay shrugged. Why should we get dirty when can't we go back to what's important? Kreese muttered. The Granulates. L started before scratching his chin silently. They have 2 arms and 2 legs just like us. But they're absolute monsters. Words don't work. Neither do guns. Their skin, which is almost rocky, doesn't let anything go through. Normal's bullets can even ricochet off them. That's for the women to deal with. Jay sighed, uncaring. The worst is, once one of them was killed, they all attacked at once, running towards us. Despite the fact that those Granoliths had been fighting each other just before. Weird. Too weird. The Pru listened carefully to every presented piece of information. An hour later, all crewmates and the Paru assembled inside the command room. I'm not letting you go again, little guy. Rhea whispered. Apostrophe. Her predatory gaze was frightening. The commander stepped forward, and turned to face everyone. She smelled fresh, and looked absolutely stunning. Now, listen up. The planet we will land on is called Till, and I'm sure all of you are aware of that. We've been there once before, after all. You might have problems with it, but the decision has already been taken. That's where we're landing. It's the only planet with an appropriate atmosphere and climate. I hope you all didn't forget that in the past months, most of our spacesuits were damaged or destroyed. We have no other choice but to make it on Till. From there, we will take all the fuel necessary. After that, comes the sweet trip home. Mission accomplished. The crewmates nodded. They all wore serious expressions on their faces. Except Rhea, who didn't seem to care much, and Jay, who clicked his tongue repeatedly. Roka, the commander, called Rhea and Kreese. The 2 stepped forward and took her place. The ecosystem and climate, as you all must remember, is much different than the one on the planet we landed on previously. That planet remains a mystery, but we were lucky to find it when it did. Anyways, Till is mostly made up of desert-like rocky plains, flooded grasslands and savannas, as well as exotic forests. In other words, it is a place where life thrives. Anything could be lurking anywhere, so do not drop your guard at any time. Kreese tapped the screen by his side, and 2 holograms appeared. Nevertheless, these 2 apex predators of Till will be our biggest problems. The species we have just found in the database earlier, Huetzos. As well as Granulates. The Pru's eyes opened wide, as it stared at the hologram. It showed both creatures in their real size, and the Granolith seemed to reach 3 meters in height. Arms, legs. A humanoid alien, The Pru had completely stopped listening at the speech being given. This guy would be perfect? A quest has been issued. Quest, Planet Discovery. Objective, land on the Till planet, and explore it, coming across its most notable species. Reward, 2 skill points. Penalty, none. Ha. Coming across them doesn't mean simply seeing them, does it? The Witso's unique ability complements my own perfectly. And the granulates. The Pru smirked internally. For these 2 skill points, I assume you want me to get a taste for both. That is correct. Well, the Pru could feel its heartbeat faster and faster as excitement rushed in. I would have done so even without the quest, so. A malicious smile could almost be read on the Pru's face. Thanks for the skill points. The meeting ended some time earlier. The Pru couldn't get the vision of those 2 species out of its head. The Witsos can willfully change their bodies. It's different than me, as their changes are temporary. But still, the important part is that it's a willful one. In other words, eating enough Witsos could level up my enhanced devouring skill, right? Enhanced devouring is about giving me control over the changes that occur when devouring. It makes sense, doesn't it? Devouring Witsos could lead to such an outcome, the Pru thought for a bit, immobile, trying to find the best way to time to run those tests. Little guy. A whisper coming from behind the Pru. It turned around, only to find Rhea leaning forward with her legs straight and her arms behind her back. The pose made her breasts look even more voluminous than they already were. And the way her dress and cleavage accentuated no. It was very nice the first time. It was very nice the second time. And it probably would be nice a third time too, but now's not the time. Once my body changes through eating those granulates, I'll be able to. Come on. Rhea whispered. Her skimpy dress floating as she turned around. Fine. Next time, my body will be different. So I'll go along with these tests. The Pru smirked internally. One last time. Chapter 30, Landing. Oh, yes. Rhea nodded repeatedly. Yes, yes. Apostrophe. Yep. She clapped her hands together. Very interesting. Unlike what the Pru had thought would happen, Rhea wasn't touching him. He wasn't touching her. Matter of fact, she wasn't even naked. Taking a sample from your skin led to nothing. It's almost like your cells are moving too fast for the telescope to notice them. No. More like vibrating too fast? As if they're about to teleport, or change into something new. Constant mutation? Huh. Rhea explained while tapping the screen in front of her. Blue balls is a worse condition than I thought it was. Oh. Rhea scratched her chin, an impressed smile on her face. Tapping just that comment of mine into the database made it pop up. Looks like I'm not the only one who has tried studying your kind. Oh. That could be trouble. The Pru remembered its harmless brethren seconds later. Nah. Rhea's gaze moved from the screen to the Pru standing a couple of steps away from her. Parus? She muttered. Unreadable genetic code. Unreadable cellular. Ugh. She scratched her head. Nothing useful then? A couple more clips led to, oh, looks like there is someone who uses your kind. The Pru reacted physically to that sentence, which made Rhea chuckle. I'm not sure if your intelligence is common in your species, or if it's just you. The Pru took a step closer. Wanna know what you're used for? The Pru didn't really want to know. Actually, he would have rathered no one knew. It was obvious what terrible weapons Parus could be turned into. If fed enough species with unique abilities, then an unstoppable army could. Garbage disposal. Apostrophe. This guy uses and sells Parus for garbage disposal, as well as the disposal of waste. Basically, anything unwanted goes into you. She scratched her chin. That's kind of creative. So it's a known fact that we can eat everything? It's just the evolution part that's. Rhea remained silent for a bit, and the Pru started walking away. How very strange. That planet we found you on. The Pru immediately froze. Isn't it all where your kind is from? How curious. As a matter of fact, that whole planet was strange. The Pru walked away, leaving Rhea deep in thought, wondering. The Pru, on the other hand, didn't need to wonder. A planet made for me? No, that's unlikely. This was just a coincidence. It is strange for a planet to only have 4 species. Evolution doesn't work like that. The Pru's eyes widened as it realized, that meteorite. What was it called again? The one on which all the Parus were. The Curio meteorite, yes, that one. It answers the question, doesn't it? Either the ecosystem was destroyed by that meteorite hitting the Miro planet, and only 4 species survived, or the species came with the meteorite? I mean, riding it? Is that even possible? I suppose it could also be a mix of both. The meteorite bringing Parus and wiping out most of the ecosystem. That's possible, isn't it? It is, indeed, possible. Won't tell me the answer? It is not necessary. Additionally, You haven't shown signs of cooperation, The Pru looked away before shrugging. Okay. With little less than 20 hours left before landing, the crewmates went to their rooms to get some sleep. At all times, one of them had to remain in front of the command board to ensure that the ship didn't go off trajectory. Fuck. Jay cursed. Just had to be me. The Pru, not feeling the need to sleep, moved towards, shit. What are you doing here? Roka asked. She was standing in front of her room, the door still closed. Roka's eyes narrowed, and she stepped closer to the Pru. Seeing her from so close, the Pru was reminded of how Roka's body was leagues above that of the others. I saw the mutt disappeared. There were traces of blood on the ground. Apostrophe. Did you kill it? Did you kill it? Then did you eat it? Roka stared, and the Pru remained immobile. I feel stupid talking to a pet, but Rhea did say you had some brains in you. The commander stared down at the Pru. The difference in height was huge. The Pru's gaze moved alternatively from her face to her breasts. Well, if you did kill him. Ha. Roka chuckled. That would make you a bit cooler than you seem. Nice. The Pru sighed internally. It tried to enter the room with Roka, but she didn't let it. The Pru waited a bit, before moving across the spaceship. To the ventilation ducts. Unfortunately, upon arriving at its favorite spot, she just went to sleep. Ugh, disappointing. Let's see. The Pru turned away, choosing another path. While moving towards Roka's room, the Pru had heard some other familiar voices. A hole was made through the duct. Think Rhea is still running tests? Don't know. Rhea shrugged. Why you do care? And get out of my room. It's not your room. 8 of us used to sleep here. I'm going to sleep here. Oh, for fuck's sake, Liz. There's enough place for everyone to have a room. Don't care. Liz shrugged, before taking off her pants. What are you doing? Getting undressed. 'Cause I'm going to sleep. Why are you making this so weird? You're the one making it weird. We used to. But now it's just the two of us. Just shut up about it already. Liz took a seat on her bed. So? Do you think she's done with the tests? Why? Do you miss the pet? Liz shrugged. I like it. It's cute. Ugh. Now you're talking like the guys. I like cute things. Sue me. You know. Rhea started as she took her pants off. With that strong body of yours, you could have all the males for you. Your arms, your shoulders. They would definitely be at your beck and call if you. Liz lowered her gaze as she pressed her lips together. She was blushing heavily. If you stopped being such a little bitch. Huh? A vein popped on Liz's forehead. A little bitch? She placed a hand on the side of her head, cracked her neck, stood up, and stepped closer to Rhea while cracking her knuckles. Did you forget who you're talking to? No, wait. This is unfair. You're a soldier. It took less than a second for Rhea to be immobilized on the ground, her neck between Liz's thighs. Who's the little bitch now? I said it was unfair. Who's the little bitch now? Liz repeated, increasing the pressure around Rhea's neck. So. Unfair. Before Rhea could get the word out, Liz's hand slapped Rhea's ass, making it jiggle. Your ass sure is your strong point. Your flat breasts though. You would have trouble, wouldn't you? They say size doesn't matter, but that's not really true, is it? Let go of Rhea's sentence was interrupted as her ass was slapped a second time. Why are you making this so gay? Rhea shouted. Meanwhile, inside the ventilation ducts. They sure get along well. The Pru thought to itself. They're very close. Interesting. The Pru stepped away, eager to test a theory he had just come up with. Granuliths, and Huesos. Less than 20 hours later, the spaceship landed on the Till planet. The planet that would change everything for the Pru.